sex gossip show tonight, but it may just turn into that. But it's crazy what's going on right now in this town, and nobody better than Bryce to tie in the Beatles, Hollywood, the film industry, television industry, music industry, and UFOs. And we're going to be able to do all of that tonight on the show. He is the absolute very, very best. I love it when Bryce is on the show. So there you go. Tomorrow night, Tricia Eastman is here. And Tricia is going to be doing a presentation later on this week in Hollywood on changing your reality and finances. So and she's the best, right? So there you go. That's what is tomorrow night on the show. She is great. She's a shaman. You know that, right? So there you go. So we're going to talk about that tomorrow night with Tricia. Cannot wait. Wednesday night is going to be a really big night too, as well. All 3 nights this week. But William Henry is going to join us. Now we've got this breaking news out of Giza. That we started talking about last week. It hit the mainstream. The announcement that through their investigations that they have been doing there now with different types of technology to look through the Great Pyramid, looking for chambers. And over the last year, they have found a few anomalies. And then this big announcement last week about this huge chamber above the Grand Gallery that is 90 feet long, 30 feet tall, and an unknown foot wide. It is huge. So that announcement, and so we're going to have William on to talk about that, but not so much the technology. I'm not interested in how they found it and what they're using. I want to know what this means. And there's nobody better than William. Plus, he just got back from France. He and his wife, Claire, they do these tours, and they go around the world. They'll be going back to Giza in February, and we'll talk about that too as well. And they just had a really cool conference this past weekend in Nashville. So we're going to talk about his recent research and trips to France, what to expect when he goes back to Egypt in February, and what this new anomaly means for everyone. So that's Wednesday night. And, we try to do that as often as possible in that talk about Egypt. I try to do it maybe once a week or every other week because we are constantly researching and investigating, trying to figure things out here. That it seems like that's all we do, Rita and myself, and we're discovering things every single day. So that'll be Wednesday night on Fade to Black. Thursday night, another Fader Night with John Rappaport and his No More Fake Newsroom live. Now, tonight, Bryce Zabel is here. He's got a new book out, which is Alternative History, and, what if the Beatles, stayed together, right? So we're going to give away copies of his book tonight. So we're going to open up the phone lines. We'll do that. And I was trying to think of something clever in order to get these books, right? You just can't call in and go, I want the book. That may work. It just depends. But so we're going to open up the phone lines. We're going to be talking about all things Hollywood. We're going to touch upon JFK. He's written about that too as well. So just make sure the question is a good one. All right? That's all. Make sure it's a good question. You thought through the question, right? Don't call in and get lucky and then go, no. Make sure your question is good. All right? And then we'll give away some books tonight. Okay. So get ready for that. Call-in numbers are 323-825-5045. In fact, we're just going to, it'll be too many phone calls. Let's just limit it to that phone bank. 323-825-5045. We'll get to that a little bit later. Oh, man. River Moon Coffee. All right. Follow us on Twitter at JChurchRadio. Simple enough, at JChurchRadio. Hashtag F2B is the sandbox. We don't bite. Come and hang out with us over on Twitter. We use TweetDeck. If you have any questions or comments during the show, hashtag F2BQ. All right. You can also email throughout the show, Jimmy at jimmychurchradio.com. Now, we announced last week on the 1st our next late night podcast star contest, courtesy of your friends over at Tascam Professional. Now, here are the rules. We've gotten lots of entries, man, and I'm telling you, competition is stiff. Good entries so far, all of you. Thank you for that. Great. It's going to be tough. It's going to be tough to make to pick somebody, and I was hoping it was going to be this good, right? You want to be able to go, man. Ooh, I don't know. That's what we want to do. So the entries so far have been great. You must be a registered Fadernaut. Okay, there's no purchase necessary. All you have to do is go to jimmychurchradio.com and register as a Fadernaut. And you just go to our membership section right there and register. We do that to confirm your email and who you are, okay? You must live in the United States. Contest rules vary by country. We can't monitor all international laws. You must submit an official pitch for the podcast. That's what you do. So just record it. And the audio recording of your podcast, your show idea, who you are, why you should be the next podcast star. Okay, you have to name your podcast, and you have to supply us with some artwork and a logo and banner form that you would use, for your website for promotion. Just like you would pitch anybody on your show idea, you are going to pitch us. So bring your A game, okay? All right, the entries so far, the recordings have been really good, and I was surprised by the quality and everybody's tone and voice and excitement. Very, 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 very cool. So, yeah, the competition is stiff, and I expected that. I really did. I was thinking it might be the opposite, but I was thinking, you know what? Somebody's going to enter this contest. They've wanted to do this. They have passion, and that's why we want to pick the next podcast star. All entries must be received by November 30th, 2017. All you have to do to submit your entry, just go to our website, click on Game Changer, jimmychurchradio.com/Game Changer, right there. And all of the rules are there. How to enter is there. And there is a special email to enter the contest. Now, the grand prize will be one Tascam Mini Studio Creator US-42. That's complete mixer, mic pre's, everything that you need, effects. There you go, your interface for the world. That'll be the cornerstone of your studio. You're going to get that. You're going to get a microphone, and you're going to get headphones. All the cabling's included. Everything is done. The rest is up to you. Okay, the winner is going to be chosen by us, the Fade to Black team, with the entry that's got the best overall pitch, the best podcast idea, and artwork and recording. Okay, all entries cannot have a current podcast. I must stress that. I'm not interested in somebody that's currently doing a podcast. You're already doing it. You've got the gear. We are looking for somebody that has been held back, no gear. They've got a show idea. They've never knew how to take the next step. All right, that's what we want. Can't have a current podcast. We will find out. You don't want your entry. You don't want your entry to just get, no current podcast. Okay, by entering Fade to Black, the Game Changer Network, Tascam Professional, reserve the right to use your name, your likeness, podcast, name of your podcast. Everything will be used in promotion and future advertising. All forms of media. We will hold nothing back. But the winner is going to have their first podcast played right here on the Game Changer Network. So it's up to you. All you have to do is enter. But, man, think about that. You're going to get everything that you deserve. You're going to get the recognition. You're going to get the gear. You're going to have your podcast. It's all going to be good. So enter today. All entries got to be received by November 30th. Speaking of podcasts, by the way, Unity Workshops is currently in production for their first series of podcasts. This is going to be on portals. They are calling on researchers and experiencers right now. They would love for you to participate. Producers, writers, video, audio testimonials, everything. For complete details, you can go to our Facebook page for Jimmy Church Radio. You can sign up at theunityproject.org. Contact John at modernmasters.org or Rita at jimmychurchradio.com. All right, our next event coming up very quickly here, February 9th through the 12th. I can't believe it, 2 months away. Conscious Life Expo, and it's at the LAX Hilton. Tickets and info, just go to www.consciouslifeexpo.com. It's going to be a great weekend of events. Tickets and info are all right there. We are going to be hosting events. I'll be hosting a panel. We're going to be doing hosting the red carpet there. All that stuff all weekend long. So come and hang out with us, okay? And don't forget a few things really quick. Subscribe to our podcast where we have over, as of today, 750 archive shows right there. Custom apps, Apple, Android, all platforms, just $2 a month. Go to JimmyChurchRadio.com, click on the podcast banner. Now, you can also become a Fade or Not. I just talked about that. Very simple. Just go to our membership section. You can go from free all the way to the game changer. Become a member today. Help support the show. It's all right there. Get yourself some hats and T-shirts and commercial-free downloadable archives, all that stuff. And don't forget, all of our sponsors here at Jimmy Church Radio are part of our family. Help support the show. Help yourself. And go and visit our sponsors. Life Change Tea, GetTheTea.com, River Moon Coffee, New Pharma, Ancient Life Oil, Sacred Skulls, and, of course, New Mana and Bearing Optics. Okay, everything is right there. Everything that you need to do. The promo codes, anything that would include, free shipping and discounts, all of that are in the banners over at JimmyChurchRadio.com. And somebody just tweeted out the new venue for Contact in the Desert. Yes, June 1st through the 3rd, 2018, Contact in the Desert will be at the Renaissance out in Indian Wells, Palm Springs. It's Palm Springs. And you can go to contactinthedesert.com and check that out, too. The facility is absolutely amazing. 2 words, air conditioning. So think about that. It's going to be a great event. I already know if I could talk right now and tell you what is going on. Oh, man. But anyway, go. Tickets and info. Get it going right now. I'm going to go ahead and retweet this. Thank you for that, Bob. Very, very cool. Yeah, I can't retweet. Man, what's up? Have I been shadow banned in Twitter? No, I can do it via Twitter. I just can't do it via TweetDeck. Huh. Is TweetDeck acting funny? Let's see here. Now it says retweet. Now I can retweet. Okay. Whew. I thought Twitter was penalizing me. Okay, here we go. Where am I? Let's get the show cracking. I've got computers updating over here to my right. Let's see. Oh, it's at 95%. It took exactly 2 hours to update. It's still not done, though, by the way. Unbelievable. Let's see here. Let's get the show cracking, by the way. Happy birthday to today. Sally Field is 71. Now, before you go back and say, yeah, she was great in this, she was great in that, she was great. No, you know what? Soap Dish. That's what she was great in, especially that scene where she passes out. And she might have done it more than once. Ethan Hawke today is 47. One of the great science fiction films of all time, Gattaca. Ethan Hawke today, 47. Our dead guy's birthday today is, I can't even believe I am saying this, but I have to. Glenn Fry. 1948 to 2016, died at the age of 67. Man, words can't express my appreciation of the effect that Glenn had on generations, literally generations. One of the most gifted writers. He was a great guitar player, too, musician, but also one of the great voices in history, let alone music history. And he's up there right now. Happy birthday, Glenn Fry. Unbelievable. On this day in history, OTD, 1987, Less Than Zero, a movie about a group of wealthy young friends right here in Los Angeles, California during the 1980s, starring Robert Downey Jr., Andrew McCarthy, James Spader, and Jamie Gertz, opens in theaters. That movie affected me. That was a great movie. That was a good one. Also had the hotel, the nightclub that they wanted to rent, right? They wanted to invest and open up a nightclub. That was the Scream. That was was it the Roosevelt? The hotel down off of MacArthur Park in downtown Los Angeles, which is at that time was it's still pretty crazy, one of the seediest areas in all of the United States. But those stairs with the red carpet going up, I can't tell you how many nights I spent on those stairs. And Anthony Kiedis, I think the Red Hot Chili Peppers, which I had seen at that hotel a few times, is in the movie too as well. I think Flea might even be in it. Man, I have to go back and watch. Fader fact. In 2015, two con men, this is a fader fact, this really happened. In 2015, two con men sold a fake Goya painting for 1.5 million euros, only to find out that the money that they were paid, the 1.5 million euros in cash, was all counterfeit. And that is a fader fact. All right, tonight Bryce Zabel is here. We're going to talk about his new book about the Beatles staying together. We're going to give away some of those books in a little bit too as well, so get ready for that. Call-in number is 323-825-5045. I'm not going to open up the other phone lines. I'm just going to keep it limited to one. Okay, so just make your question good, and you'll get one of Bryce's books. Okay, now we're also going to talk about the craziness that has taken over Hollywood. And Bryce is part of Hollywood. He's been here for a long time. And it goes without saying, CBS, PBS, CNN, NBC. He's been a journalist and a reporter, a prize-winning journalist and reporter for all of the major networks. But he's also a writer, screenwriter. He's done lots of television series, lots of feature films. And he, of course, co-wrote books with Richard Dolan, 80 After Disclosure, and Alternative History. So there is nobody better to talk about what is going on in Hollywood today. And that also includes the UFO subject and Tom DeLonge and JFK. He's written about JFK. All of this that Bryce has been talking about with not only alternative history, but research and journalism is all happening at the same time over the last 2 weeks. Very, very interesting. So tonight, it's Bryce Zabel here with us all night. He is one of the best journalists and reporters of our generation, and it is an honor and a privilege to have him here. Tomorrow night, Tricia Eastman is back. Wednesday night, William Henry. Thursday night, of course, is another Fader night with John Rappaport, and there's No More Fake Newsroom live. Now, I wanted to talk about a couple of things that are going on right now in this country, and it's not so much... it's not politics, although politics and the conspiracy of politics is easy to do. It's easy to weave pop culture and the status quo right through that deep pit of mud. But I don't have to. This weekend, though, proved a couple of things. And it's getting ugly out there. We had another mass shooting at a church in Texas where 26 people were killed in a very, very, very small town. I had read a report today that I think it was 4%, 5% of the town died at 11:30 a.m. there just to go to church, right? So that's pretty brutal. And coming off of some of the other tragedies, of course, Las Vegas, and other things that are going on right now in the world, taking our sight off of some of this breaking news that is going on out there seems to be the media's number one play, and it is very, very effective. And to have something like this where these news headlines now read, you know, the worst mass shooting in Texas history, the worst shooting in a church in the United States history. These are headlines we don't need to read. And I don't know what's going on with that part. And obviously this is a disturbed young man, 26 years old. He was convicted, spent 12 months in prison, United States Air Force, beat his wife and his child and other things, and dishonorably discharged, right? Okay, conduct and all of those, like it should have been. But apparently, amongst other things, the Air Force failed to report to the feds this guy's convictions and what he was convicted of. So therefore, he was allowed to, go out and purchase guns and didn't have anything in his background checks. Now, I find that pretty disturbing that was allowed to happen. Man, just MK Ultra comes into play, but I'm not going there yet. But this is what was more disturbing to me, was to see different journalists and celebrities out there from the left and the right claiming the same things. And when I see that, pointing the finger at the other side, see, it's the liberals' fault. See, it's the right's fault. It blaming everybody. And the cultural divide that has happened in this country is starting to get a little bit alarming. And I'm almost at the point where I want to do nothing but tell everybody every single day, get it together. Everybody has allowed the media to manipulate and pollute their minds on both extremes, the two extremes out here, the two extremes. So much so that they have forgotten the reality of this is the United States. This is America. It's America first. Getting this divide, this anger that is going on, it's just like, how do we stop this? How do we stop this now? When things go just a little bit too far, they go a little bit too far, and then there's no turning back. And you get to the point where, how do we get here? How did we get here now? And that's where we are at. All over a church shooting in Texas, right? The Las Vegas shooting, where the extremes are blaming each other for the craziest, most outrageous claims. And nobody wants to just sit back and go, wait a minute, what is making us do this? It's country first. It's country first. You want this thing to implode from the inside, nobody wins. That is just a retarded thought. We can't continue to go there. We have to back up and go, look, we are all different. The reason why this country is so great is that everybody is different, that we don't agree, and that we work out stuff, and we figure things out, and we move forward, and we laugh at everything else, because that's what makes us great. How do we lose sight of that? How do we lose sight? What's most important? Honestly, what's most important? If two things happened in this country, we would stop fighting and looking at each other. Okay? If two things happened. One, we got rid of the homeless and the sick and the unhealthy, and we took care of all of that across this country. That first and foremost. And you know what else? Second, everybody just makes a little more money, little less unemployment. Just kick all of that up so there's happiness, where we're not tripping on what has happened with the middle class. If all of that is done, a few less fighter jets built, a couple less aircraft carriers. Let's take care of the schools, the education system, the bridges and the roads and the unemployment issues, and just take care of all of that here and get back to what we enjoyed, which was just being Americans. I used to love the one great thing. You ever seen the movie The Burbs? The Burbs. The Burbs was America. That was, right, where we had the crazy Vietnam vet down the street. We had the hippies down the road. We had some crazy Republican across the street and a Democratic neighbors and the dude across the street that worked for some software company that never came out of his house ever. You never saw him ever. Somehow he went to work. His wife stayed home every day. Never saw him. But on July 4th, the entire block up and down the street, man, closed it down, fireworks, getting drunk, cooking dead animals, munching down, having fun, everybody together, blowing stuff up. That nobody cared. We all had our difference, and that's what made America great. And today, a church, 26 people are shot and killed, and suddenly it's the right, it's the left, it's this, it's that. Stop with that. Stop with it. That's the conspiracy. The conspiracy here, it is so obvious. There is a divide being performed right now on this country. There's a divide, and we're fighting over nothing. Nothing. Who cares about Hillary? Who cares about Trump? Who cares about Russia? Who cares about Uranium One? Who cares about Trump's son? Who cares about Mueller? Who cares, man? It's all about nothing. And it's done with ingenious planning and forethought to keep us fighting. Get back to what's real. Get back to what made this country great. And with that, I have no audio. I have no idea how I'm going to pull this off. I am down to the wire here, and I have no idea. This computer still has not restarted, so I can play something fake. Should I play something fake? Oh, man, I'm just going to do this. I have no idea what commercials are about to play, but I'm going to do it anyway. It's what I have to do. This is Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. I've got computers that I guarantee this thing's going to update one more time. It's Fade to Black tonight. Bryce Zabel. He'll be right here. I'm your host, Jimmy Church, on the Game Changer Network and KGRA, The Planet. I'll be right back.
You're listening to Jimmy Church, Fade to Black.
Fade to Black will now pause for alien identification.
The station that talks the net. KGRA Radio. When you take the beans from Central America with dashes of Indonesian and African mixed in and then roasted to the dark side of Fade to Black, you create the ultimate brew of fringe. Introducing the Fade to Black blend from Rivermoon Coffee. Yes, Rivermoon's darkest customized roast was created for the love of Fade to Black. The alchemy of masterful roasting and smoking the beans is in every sip of this full-bodied, dark Java. I need my coffee dark, deep, with distinct bittersweet chocolate highlights, just like the bunker. Leaning further into the darkness of the roast is Fade to Black blend from Rivermoon Coffee. Just click on the banner at jimmychurchradio.com and use the promo code F2BBLEND for 15% off of your order today. Go Beckley Teppy.
Hi, folks. Let's wind the clocks back 60 years. Food was different. Food provided health and nutrition, and using supplements was minimal. Unfortunately, now we have chemicals, GMOs, herbicides, and pesticides that can be quite lethal in the name of our food supply and, of course, the ever-loving dollar. Supplementing our diets can be very important to stay healthy. Cleansing from daily intruders to the body might be critical. Live strong and take charge. Log on to getthetea.com. Our herbal tea is a great way to cleanse from intruders. Our supplements is a great way to maintain and improve your health. When your health is not up to par, go to getthetea.com. No GMOs, no fillers, and organic, and very helpful in keeping you at the top of your game. Life is too short to feel, you know what I mean. Stay in the game, at the top of your game with getthetea.com. That's getthetea.com. Again, getthetea.com.
9 out of 10 geneticists agree.
Fade to Black is not your father's radio show on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, The Planet.
Hi, this is Chase Kletsky with Fate Magazine Radio, and you're listening to Jimmy Church and Fade to Black on the Game Changer Network and the KGRA digital broadcast station where the Fade or Nots rock.
Hi, this is Rob Reiner from Anvil, and you're listening to JimmyChurchRadio.com. What's up? I'm Chris. What up? This is Kyle Massey, and you're listening to Jimmy Church Radio.
All right, welcome back. Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church, on the Game Changer Network and KGRA The Planet. You can follow me on Twitter at JChurchRadio. I think you can follow Bryce. I think it's probably the real Bryce Zabel. He's up there on Twitter. We'll get those links up here in just a second. Bryce Zabel, winner of the WGA Award for Screenwriting, and has created and produced 5 prime-time television series, including Dark Skies, one of my favorites, The Crow, one of my favorites, and worked on a dozen TV writing staffs. He produced features Atlantis, Mortal Kombat, and miniseries Blackbeard, Pandemic. His latest film, The Last Battle, based on a New York Times bestseller, will be shot by StudioCanal this summer in Europe. His Breakpoint alternative history book series is the winner of the prestigious Sidewise Award and continues this Christmas with the publication of Once There Was a Way, a novel about the Beatles staying together. We're going to give away some of those books tonight, so get ready for that. He was the first writer since Rod Serling elected to serve as the chairman CEO of the Television Academy, the organization that awards the Emmys. He has taught screenwriting as an adjunct professor at the USC School of Cinematic Arts and has been an award-winning on-air journalist for PBS, CNN, and NBC. He is an active dues-paying member of the WGA, Writers Guild of America, DGA, Directors Guild of America, and SAG, the Screen Actors Guild. Tonight, we're going to discuss how today Hollywood has been tipped upside down with sexual allegations from every part of the industry, and we'll also weave the UFO community and his research into the possibility of disclosure and the recent JFK document dump, all of that with alternative history, music, and the Beatles. I don't know how he does it, but we're going to pull that off tonight. I'd like to welcome back Bryce Zabel. Bryce, how are you, man?
I think I should quit after a great intro like that. I think I should just go home.
You know what's funny?
I am home, so it's okay.
You know what's funny? It's all true, though. When everything that you write about, everything that you've been producing and creating and been vocal about for so many years has come to pass in the last 2 weeks. You got to be either feeling pretty good or feeling pretty strange.
Well, I feel like we live in interesting times, and I think probably many of your listeners feel the same way, that things that, I remember growing up, the idea that there would be a tied presidential election, nobody would have thought of that. The fact that a president would actually be impeached and go to the Senate trial, nobody thought that would happen.
Right.
The fact, a Donald Trump election, nobody thought that. I mean, we just live in interesting times, and frankly, anything could happen now. But I just wanted to say, I heard you just before the break talking about country first, and I really think that's something we all have to try to work a little bit harder at, and I really want to salute you for bringing it up. It's important for us to remember that, and I do.
I don't understand, if I could run for president, if there was a way that I could become some kind of activist, that would be my platform. Quit being idiots. Right? That would be my hat. That would be the hat.
That's a direct approach. It might even work, because nobody's ever tried that before. So maybe that would work. I mean, the only thing that I think is you were saying, just stop caring. I think we still care. I care a lot about a lot of things, but I do think that we should practice some of these skills that we've been taught about how to get along with other people and how to try to reach consensus and how to hear what the other person is saying before you have to speak your own truth. And if we could do a little bit more of that, I mean, we have to be able to get people in a room together who feel very differently about something. Take the gun issue. You have to be able to talk to people that the Second Amendment is everything. And then you have to talk to people who feel like we've got to get some of these guns off the streets, and you got to get everybody in a room, and you got to find out if there's a way that we can figure out how to move forward. And we seem to have lost that these days.
Yeah, and what's interesting here with this tragedy, I mean, just craziness that happened in Texas over the weekend. I just can't imagine. I mean, church is supposed to be a safe place, man. Out of everything, that's supposed to be the safest place. And here we have somebody that probably, by all accounts, should not have been able to purchase guns, right? And he goes into this church, kills 26 people. Yeah. So then you have the side that's going to say, see, we need more gun control, right? And then you have the fact that he was shot by a civilian with a gun that happened to have a gun and shot him. And then so you have the other side going, see, if the civilians didn't have guns, he wouldn't have been shot. And we've got this weird position. Now, that is why our forefathers in this country made sure that we didn't have one system in place, that we have multiple systems for checks and balances where everybody could have a voice. This argument that we have right now in front of us is a wonderful argument to have. We are in a country where we can have this debate. It's not right or wrong. It's like, but that's exactly what made this country great. And people are losing sight of that. They'd rather argue and point fingers and blame instead of understanding that we live in a country where we can have this debate. What if we had some kind of just crazy dictatorship where we didn't have these choices or voices? Right?
It's shocking. You said a church is where you ought to be safe, but I'd say little kids in school ought to be safe, and I think people that go to a country western concert ought to be safe. We've got a problem. I don't think anybody can say we don't have a problem. We do have a problem. We don't seem to agree on any of the solutions, but unless you learn to talk to each other, you'll never agree on them. So we have work to do.
Yeah, we do.
And the fact that you're speaking out like you just did, that's part of the work. And I hope that your listeners take that work to their workplaces tomorrow and to their homes. And maybe the legacy we have to create now is learning how to speak to each other again.
Well, speaking about responsibilities, your career has been centered around not only excellence in journalism and reporting, but also working for the biggest networks in the country. And don't you think that the mass media today bears some responsibility here on what they are doing with causing this divide in this country? It seems like it's premeditated. They know exactly what they're doing, and they're not doing anything to diffuse it.
Well, I do think that I don't buy what Trump is saying about fake news. That seems to be just silliness. There's a lot of journalists who I know and who I respect who are trying to do good work. But I will say one thing. One thing I learned in my very first week on the job in a television station as a reporter is that when you go out, and at least back then, that was a while ago, but when you went out in the field to report a story, you'd get your pictures, you'd find the person who was saying one thing, and then you'd often find the person who said the exact opposite. And it led to a kind of journalism that I call some say yes, some say no, we say maybe journalism. Mm-hmm. So in a minute and a half, you'd have one side, then the other side, and then the reporter would do their stand-up and say, I guess we'll never know, or we'll know soon, or whatever. And I think that that's carried over into our cable news talking heads coverage. Even Fox needs to put on the token liberal, and the other networks and cable people put on the token conservatives or whatever, because it's always presented as conflict. We're never really achieving solutions. We're talking about the conflict. So I do agree with you in that regard, but that's kind of baked into the cake of journalism. I think when journalists misbehave and don't do the right thing, then they should be called out on it. But so should our politicians. And I think that if you ask the founding fathers, they would have said, we need these journalists to hold us accountable. And I think by and large, journalists do that. They're not perfect. They're certainly not perfect, but the politicians aren't perfect either. And the world isn't perfect. We live in an imperfect world, and we better get used to it, and we better deal with it.
I have noticed over the last few years, and I've reported on this a lot to my audience, when When you go and you read a breaking story or something, or you hear something, no matter what your choice of network is, it doesn't matter. But take the story, flip it over 180 degrees, and you're going to be closer to the truth. And you can have the same breaking story coming from multiple networks, and every one of them will put their slant on it. And it seems like the reporting now, the news, has become opinions driven by the platform that the agenda that they want to push forward instead of the facts. Why?
Well, we're not getting the facts from the White House right now either. So,
or from anywhere.
We could probably do a couple of rounds on that one. I don't think the media is as irresponsible, maybe as you do, and certainly not as irresponsible as the president thinks. But I think that there are elements of that. As I said, some of it is baked in, and some of it derives from the story being covered. There are certain things that they cover very well. And then there are other things where they have certain things, they see the world in a certain way. And I know we'll be talking about JFK tonight. That's certainly one way that you can say the media sees it in one way that's out of continuity with how I see it, for example. And I think also we are so well used to social media and the media itself right now that we all have seen things that don't line up with our reactions. I'll give you, the best example I could say is it used to be that the only people who really distrusted the media were the ones who actually had a story done about them. And again, they'd watch the story that night and they'd say, well, that's not the way it really went down, or that's not what I meant, or whatever. And it's an imperfect science trying to represent reality because, as we've seen on gun control and so many other issues, we don't see reality the same way. And so it's kind of hard to agree that someone, we do tend to want to see the cable station that represents our reality most accurately. And I think it might do people some good to start, like I watch all cable news. The ones that I agree with, the ones I disagree with, I just try to feed my head with a lot of different opinions because I look at that as my job. And I've always looked at it that way as a journalist, but I'm wondering if more people who aren't involved in journalism should still look at it as their job to try to expose themselves to more ideas and even ideas that are challenging to their worldview, because there's a lot of other people in the world that don't see the things the way that you might see them. So we need a little more tolerance, a little more empathy. I don't want to preach. I mean, obviously, I'm not perfect about that, and you're not either, and neither are your listeners. So we should, clearly we all need to try a little harder at this. The world's in trouble right now. There's no question about it. Some of it is environmental, some of it is political, but the world's in trouble, and we all need to pitch in.
When you were a full-time, journalist, reporter on air and out there doing your thing, were you influencnced by something other than yourself? Was your judgment ever influenced? Is there a puppet master out there that is controlling the networks themselves?
I never saw it at my level. I do think that well, first of all, we could just answer that in some specific reality because we know, for example, the CIA has worked very hard over the years to place assets and to buy assets in media, as they have in many other areas. So yeah, there are some puppet master aspects to the whole thing, but I myself never saw that. What I saw more would be the deficiencies that I think I see on the air now, which is for at the beginning, back when Edward R. Murrow was doing his thing, the idea was to cover the news in a legitimate and accurate way. But as television matured, what happened is instead of walling off the news department and leaving it to its own devices and to follow the edicts of journalism as best they could, what we instead did is tell them that they had to follow the same rules as the rest of the TV station. They had to make money. They had to have ratings. And so the people who I saw meddling most of all were the people who were the general managers who basically and the owners who basically didn't see journalism as a high calling, but saw it as a revenue source.
Right.
And
right.
And that is something that journalism schools all over America today are still arguing about, and I think it's a fair question.
What about, do you think there's room out there? Don't laugh, Bryce. Do you think that there's room out there for something like GNN, the Good News Network? I mean, could that succeed?
I think people have tried that. I had a friend I used to walk with every week, and that was his thing. Why isn't there more good news on? Why can't they just, lead with the good news? Well, first of all, let's go back to what news actually is. If the movie theater every day projects the film at the right time, that's not news. But if the movie theater catches on fire and burns down, that's news. So I think that you have seen people be aware of the feeling that you're saying, and certainly more shows try to put good news into their broadcasts. But like I watch most of the time, if I'm going to watch one of the major network news shows, I watch NBC, and for a long time they've been trying to stick that good news thing at the end of the show. Yeah. And that's the part where I want to just click off.
Right.
I mean, I feel like, look, I want to know what's going on with North Korea. I want to know what's going on in Texas. I want to know what's going on in places where there's news happening. And when they get to the, isn't this a sweet story, it doesn't reach me. That doesn't mean it doesn't reach other people. I watch with my wife a lot, and she likes those stories. I tend to go out and that's when I leave and go get a drink or something.
Right.
It's just so. Yes, there is room for that. Whether there's room for that as an entire show, they have tried. It has been on the air before, and it has been canceled. So there's your answer. It didn't get the ratings.
So HNN, the Happy News Network, not a good idea. Not a good revenue stream.
Well, you know what? I mean, the nice thing you can say about that is it's a fine idea to explore. And as long as you're going to let the marketplace tell you what works and what doesn't by ratings and money, you'll get a good answer. And the answer currently is, people say they want good news. They do say that a lot, but they don't actually want it that bad because they don't watch it when it's offered to them.
Well, you know what's strange about that is this is what I don't do. This is what I do and don't do on this show and this network. I don't do politics. I don't talk about ISIS beheading videos. I don't go down the negative road. If I delve into any of that, it's the conspiracy of what is going on. That
if you don't do any of that stuff, what are we going to talk about?
Well, see, and look at the success. People come here because we don't do that.
I think that's good. And we live in a world where, in the world I'm in, show business right now, we're having what we call peak TV. You've heard of peak oil. We have peak TV now. We are creating more television series than ever in history. And the quality of them is better than it's ever been.
I agree.
And yet the truth of the matter is, who's watching all this? There's like 450 television series in production right now, more or less.
Crazy.
And the thing is, because television is my life, I guess, as you mentioned, I was the TV Academy chairman. I produce television. I write television. So I also watch a lot of television. I try to watch as much as I possibly can. And if I'm lucky, in a year I'll have seen 50 different shows.
It's amazing. It's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, I'll ask when I'm at the dentist, I'll say, "What are you watching on TV?" just to find out what the street Nielsen's are for that, and he'll tell me, and it's like just a couple of shows. Most people watch maybe between 5 and 10 shows, so that's part of the. So we have lost. Again, going back to your original point, one of the things we have lost is we used to have, when we were a 3-network nation, we had more common things that happened that we could talk about. We had more things at the water cooler that we had shared experience with. And now we're all in our little enclaves.
Yep.
You watch the shows you watch. So it's kind of funny, when people actually learn that I've created some primetime shows, they always say, well, what are they? And anymore, I don't even try to tell them, because the truth is, I'll get the same response. No, I never saw that. Or, oh, really? What was that about? Because nobody watches the same thing anymore. Even popular shows, even when Breaking Bad was the show that everybody was talking about, you would think, when I'm here in Hollywood, that's what it seemed like.
Yep.
But in the middle of the country, most people had never seen it. Still haven't seen it.
The last year, Rita and I, we're in Manhattan. We're shooting our new TV show, right, on History Channel. We're out there shooting, and we're down.
That's a show everybody will watch.
Yeah, right.
That's the exception to the rule that I just said.
Yeah, you know what the network did to us? They released internationally before the United States. Man, you got to love that, right? So anyway, we're in Times Square. All the billboards in Times Square were Stranger Things, right?
Yeah.
Everywhere. Yeah. And here, that's not on a network. Well, it's on a network, but it's not on, Fox, ABC, CBS, NBC. It's not on Showtime, right? It's not HBO. It's not even USA Network, right? It's Netflix. And they were everywhere.
Netflix dropped that without a word. They just kind of put it on the, out there on the platform, and people found it. They barely even talked about it prior to doing that. So, I mean, there's a good example. But again, I would say we think everybody's talking about it, but in reality, if you ask most people if they watch it, the vast majority will say, no, I don't watch it. I heard something about it. I heard it's good.
And look who, and when you think about, the only thing I'm watching right now, we're going to head towards a break here in a second, Bryce. The only thing that I'm watching right now on network television is Orville, right, on Fox, and which absolutely is fantastic, by the way. But that's it. I have no clue, nothing on what is going on as far as a scripted or unscripted series on network television. I don't have a clue. Nothing at all.
And are you specifically drawing a distinction between network and, say, cable and pay television? Because you're saying you don't watch broadcast TV anymore?
The choices, like you're talking about, are so vast now.
Yeah.
You can go a la carte. You can go with Amazon Prime. You can go with Netflix. You can go with DirecTV. You can pick and choose what network, whatever. It's the choices now with apps. And having a Fox app or a USA Network app or a Showtime app, and totally just get your programming from an app, from the net.
It's this as an Academy member, we get the screening tapes for all the television series. We got more than ever before this year. And get this, here's a stat you can go to break on, I guess. Netflix sent out 21 pounds of DVDs and supporting materials to every one of the 18,000 Academy members. Do the math. I mean, it's unbelievable.
How does that arrive? And what is it, DVD or is it US?
It's beautiful. It's all packaged. I mean, it's an environmental crime, I suppose. But, I think 5 years from now, they won't be sending the DVDs out. Everything will be done online. But this year, for example, our house must have received close to 200 packages from various television entities with their materials in it. But Netflix, it used to be HBO that put out the nicest packaged and most voluminous stuff. This year it was Netflix.
Couldn't they do it all on a USB drive?
They could. And in fact, that's eventually going to happen. But, the real bottom line reason is the Academy still makes money licensing their mailing list to the people that want to mail these things to their members. So it's a source of income for the Academy. And, again, decades ago, it was the VHS tapes that showed up. Now it's the DVDs, but even the DVDs are going away, and it won't be coming on thumb drives. You'll get a code, and there'll be a special place where you can watch everything. It's already starting to happen. Technology is going to overwhelm the situation and fix the problem of all this waste and abuse of, precious materials, I guess.
Yeah, all of the reviewing and everything that I did this last year, for the first time it's been like this. Before it was always on DVD or something, but now everything with the networks is, you got a code and you're going to some private domain and you review everything there.
Right.
And that's it.
Well, that makes it better. I mean, I think that's good. Also, one of the reasons that the entities like Netflix and Amazon don't want to do that is that sort of evens the playing field. And the people that have money and want to sort of lobby for their Emmy aggressively, they want to be able to put this beautiful packaging around their materials and their submissions. That's why they do it, which is probably inside baseball for your listeners and doesn't really matter, but that's what's happening.
Yeah, the bribe. It's a bribe. That's okay.
It is.
Yeah, it's a bribe. It's a bribe. Let's take a break right here. Our guest tonight, Bryce Zabel. When we come back, we're going to talk about his new book. And maybe we'll actually wait a little bit for that because I want to open up the phone lines a little bit later, and we're going to give away some books tonight. Again, if you get through on the phone lines, just make it a good question. This is Fade to Black. Our guest tonight, Bryce Zabel. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. We'll be right back.
This is Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, the Global Radio Alliance.
This is KGRA Digital Broadcasting Station, Salt Lake City, Utah, Van Buren, Arkansas. Hello, Fadernauts. This is Jimmy Church, and I'm introducing New Pharma, a company whose products are based on science. Human function based on the endocannabinoid system, or ECS. New Pharma firmly believes in this science, and their research indicates that support of the ECS provides the beneficial effects for a healthy lifestyle. New Pharma's science includes relief capsules for pain relief, sleep capsules, which are natural support for occasional sleeplessness. Foundation is support for your ECS, and Fit capsules support your active lifestyle. Just click on the banner at jimmychurchradio.com and use the promo code F2B for a 33% discount on all of their products. Or visit newpharma.com for all of the knowledge on the science. That's GNUpharma.com. Go Beckley Tappy.
You're listening to my main man, Jimmy Church, on jimmychurchradio.com.
Hi, this is Ray Hobbs here, repping the planet, and you're listening to my good friend, Jimmy Church, Fade to Black, on the Game Changer Network and the KGRA Digital Broadcast Station.
This is Toby Kebbell. You're listening to jimmychurchradio.com. Don't hurt me, Jimmy. I'm only little.
Hey, I'm Adrian Grenier.
And this is Ari Gold.
We're the Honey Brothers.
Yes.
We are of the Honey Brothers. Hey, I'm Adrian Grenier.
And I'm Ari Gold.
We're the Honey Brothers.
And you're listening to Jimmy Church.
The Revolution.
Ancient Life Oil. Life-changing. The real oil. CBD is truly ancient life oil from the source. This oil has no psychoactive effect and is also legal in all 50 states. When you're healthy, you're happy. The truth about this wonderful plant is that it wants to give back to mankind life, longevity, and happiness. Ancient Life Oil are golden grade, all organic, non-GMO, and infused with high-quality liquid coconut oil. It's simple. Just go to ancientlifeoil.com today. That's ancientlifeoil.com. The best, purest, organic, and non-GMO CBD in the world. Go Beckley Tappy. The statements made regarding these products have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. These products are not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease. Please consult your healthcare professional about potential interactions or other possible complications before using any product.
This is Micah Hanks of the Gralien Report, and you're listening to Jimmy Church on Fade to Black, across the globe on the Game Changer Radio Network and the one and only KGRA Radio, The Planet.
All right, welcome back. Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Tonight, our guest, Bryce Zabel. Now, we're going to be able to get Sex in Hollywood, UFOs, JFK, and the Beatles all in one conversation. So buckle up.
Oh, it sounds so easy.
It does sound easy. Now, how long have you been in Hollywood? How long have you been in the biz?
Oh, years ago, my agent said, stop putting all your credits on your resume. It says you're here too long. So if I answer that question honestly, I'll have to leave the business. No, I've been here. Let's see. How long have I been in? Well, I was alive when JFK was killed, so you can do your own math.
Well, I was a month old, so that doesn't really matter. So you were a month old. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Well,
hey, by the way, I know you're going to give out some of these books, so I just wanted to put one thing out there for your listeners. If you want to kind of figure out what the book is even about, it's called Once There Was a Way, What If the Beatles Stayed Together? And there's a lovely website that you can look at while you're listening to us. It's called whatifbeatles.com. That may inspire a question or two for later in the show. Whatifbeatles.com.
And speaking of that, when we look at the history of Hollywood, the rumors about what is going on today kind of started with Cosby. In a weird way, it started with him. But the rumors were daily fodder out here. It was just a way. It doesn't make excuses for anything, but the industry was always painted with that kind of light. The term casting couch is like it's a universal. It's probably in the Webster's Dictionary,
correct.
Right?
Yeah.
And here we are today. I feel that. I'm going to say this in a direct way. I don't think that anybody, camera people, sound people, makeup people, people that work in the industry here in Burbank every single day. Nobody, aside from the actors and the writers and the producers and the directors, nobody wanted to say anything because people wanted to stay employed. And that's the truth. So, and again, I'm not making excuses for it, but this has been talked about forever out here. But today,
what's interesting, though, if you want to think of a metaphor for this sexual harassment tsunami that's going on right now, think of the Berlin Wall. It couldn't come down. And then it came down overnight. This is one of those issues that's been festering for a long time. But when it falls fast and furious. By the way, just before we went on, just for fun, I sat down and I just said, I'm going to just off the top of my head, see how many names I can come up with. This I did literally while I was hearing your intro. These are the names: Harvey Weinstein, Bill Cosby, Kevin Spacey, Donald Trump, Bill O'Reilly, Roger Ailes, Dustin Hoffman, James Toback, Roy Price, Bob Weinstein, George H.W. Bush, Mark Halperin, Ben Affleck. Those are just the ones I came up with that have been pulled into this net since, recently, in the last year, and most of them in the last month.
Who would have thunk? Right? It's like nobody's scared now, right? As far as coming forward.
We do. Like, we started the show by saying we live in interesting times. This is part of it. This is a change, a long time coming. There's been an abuse of people and power for a long time. It is not true that everybody knew about it. I have never, I've heard the phrase casting couch. I've never seen anything like that. I mean, I've personally never observed any of this behavior that got these people on that list I just read. I don't doubt that it's there, but I never had firsthand knowledge where I could tell anyone other than, and I think you and I have talked about this before. My mentor in the business was a man named Bill Asher. Mm-hmm. Bill, his last television show was my first television show, and he sort of taught me how to produce. But Bill sort of came from old Hollywood, where the rules were very different, and he behaved in a different way, and he would not have a job today if he was. Well, he's dead now, but if he was around, he wouldn't have a job in Hollywood under these circumstances.
He was a power player here in Hollywood. Totally. I mean, there's no question. The Asher name in Hollywood is is up there, right?
Yeah, he literally directed, I think, the first couple of seasons of I Love Lucy, and he's the guy that married Elizabeth McGovern and came up with the nose twitch and things like that. Terrifically talented comedic figure, but again, he hung with the Rat Pack. He hung out with JFK and Sammy Davis Jr. and Frank Sinatra and Peter Lawford and those kind of guys, and they all lived in a different world. That world no longer exists. If it existed a month ago, it doesn't exist now.
Would you have, when we look at, it's one thing with Harvey Weinstein. I mean, it's painful to even look at pictures of him now, but, well, it always has been that way. But when it comes down to people like Kevin Spacey, now Kevin was supposed to be one of the good guys. And if you think of the successes that he has had, not only with television, but with film, are extraordinary. He is at the upper crust of everything that is Hollywood. And the success of House of Cards may have allowed him to continue this, but who would have thought that is one of the most watched shows in recent history, and it doesn't matter now. Everybody can be brought down.
The accent is he was at the top. I mean, his days are over. That's just not going to happen anymore. And he's gone. I mean, I don't, we I guess semi sort of forgave Mel Gibson because he's working again, which I don't know what that says. That means anti-Semitism is better than sexism and sexual harassment. I don't know. But I just don't see some of these guys working again in the same way. I just don't see that happening. I think that Hollywood has been already changed by these revelations, and there's just there will be accommodations, there'll be understandings, etc., but there's no going back. The old Hollywood that allowed this to be part of it, I think, is dead and buried.
Just like, with what is going on in Washington right now with Mueller, right, and sealed indictments, and there's going to be arrest impending. So everybody in Washington is freaking out. They don't know. They don't trust their friends. Can you imagine what that atmosphere is like in Washington? It's the same thing here now in Hollywood.
Well, you know what, though? I think my attitude about the Mueller investigation and all that is if you're prepared to tell the truth, you have nothing to fear. So the people who are quaking in their boots in Washington right now probably would prefer not to tell the truth to anybody about whatever it is that they're going to be asked about. And the same thing is sort of true with the whole Hollywood sexual harassment thing, which is if you haven't done anything that you're ashamed of, then you don't have anything to fear. So I think the people who are freaking out, if there are indeed people out here in town freaking out, are the ones that are wondering if that thing they did is going to catch up with them. And the people who don't have any skeletons in their closet probably sleep pretty well at night.
Can you imagine the amount of minds right now, as you and I are talking in Hollywood, are going, okay, man, what did I do in 1985? Right. That's what it's like right now.
Well, and look, I don't have sympathy for the more egregious behavior. There's almost nothing that I've heard that Harvey Weinstein did that I find even reasonable in any way. So that's one thing. But there are different shades of misbehavior, and he's certainly at the one scale, although he's exceeded on that scale even by Bill Cosby. There's people that have done that, and even, there's just no way to even look at the Cosby case and find anything other than contempt for that. Same with Weinstein. Then there are other people who may be worried because, again, the things that are acceptable in one time period are not acceptable in another time period. I don't not making excuses for anybody whatsoever. I'm just saying there may be certain ways people have talked to each other over the years that would not be acceptable today that might have been acceptable a few years ago. But again, I don't think those people have that much to worry about. I think the people who are worried are the ones who have done things, who have abused their power. And it doesn't just go to Hollywood. If you want to talk about powerful men who have abused female employees, you'd have to put President Kennedy in that list. You'd have to put President Clinton in that list. And apparently you have to now put President H.W. Bush in that list.
Right.
So this isn't just a Hollywood issue. It just happens to be an issue that gets more attention because of the Hollywood people who are falling during this time. But I think all of America is probably learning a few things about how we're supposed to treat each other. It goes back again to the start of your show. It's like you want to hold your head up high, then don't be an asshole.
Right.
Be a good person and be decent to the people you meet, and you'll probably be okay.
I remember going back into the 80s and throughout the 90s, the rumors and the conversations that were going on with my actor friends and musician friends. There were certain rumors and stories that were going around. One, Corey Haim was not a secret in Hollywood. You know what that was about, and today, it's being spoken about. But there was a lot of crazy talk about the things that were going on, the goings on up in the Hollywood Hills, and you would hear these stories, and the foundation now seems to be very, very solid for all of it. But the point is, nobody took it a step further. There was no journalism that was involved. Nobody wanted to uncover the story. It was left completely alone. It seemed like it was, Hollywood's biggest secret, but nobody cared about it.
That is the most complex part of this issue. There's no question. I have heard stories about wild parties and stuff, but I wasn't at the party. In fact, I don't go to parties like that. So I had no personal experience on that. You'd hear it and you'd go, well, that sounds kind of bad. But it wasn't your story, and I wasn't a journalist investigating that. I have, I have spoken out when Bill did a couple of things that I didn't approve. I told him I didn't like it, that kind of thing. I think there's been some of that, but one thing I thought it might be interesting to talk about. What do we do about it?
That's the
and
point.
There are some things going on in Hollywood right now that are probably going to be that are probably also being done across the country and where we're going. I mean, the first response we're going to see from a lot of this is a lot more female executives in Hollywood. A lot of these guys that have lost their jobs are going to be replaced by women, I would imagine, and they're going to have a different way of looking at this kind of behavior. But I also think we're getting close to a zero tolerance on some of this. These are some of the things I have heard that are going on. I mean, first of all, there's just no one, male or female probably, but definitely not female, who is being sent up to some male executive's hotel suite alone. I mean, that's just not happening. I mean, I think you're just not going to see that happening. And it's that behavior is pretty much gone. If you had to go to somebody's hotel suite, you go with someone else. And you usually don't do that. Also, even in meetings, you need someone else in the room. If there's a male executive meeting with a female employee, then somebody else is in the room. There's no closed doors in that kind of situation. I heard that at Warner Brothers, there's even some kind of edict about elevator rides where, if a woman's on the elevator alone, a man doesn't get on and to be with just her. That's what I heard anyway. So I think, it's all about a code of conduct now. We're talking about a code of conduct. And frankly, it's probably time. I mean, if you listen to the testimony of the women who have come forward, it's something that they've had, that they all know was going on for a long, long time, and they've all had to sort of put up with it. And now they're proudly not putting up with it. And I say more power to them. Why should you have to put up with that kind of nonsense?
There was another thing that used to go on quite actively on the Sunset Strip in its heyday in the mid 80s. There was this joke, this running thing, this running commentary that was all over the strip. And that was, okay, like some band, right, had some notice coming towards them, right? Possibility of a record deal or this or that, or a management company. And the joke was this, man, okay, time for a band meeting. Okay, which one of us is going to take one for the team? Right?
Oh, man.
And it was, and I'm being serious here. Now,
well, but times change.
I know
times change.
Well, and back to my point, it's like the casting couch, right?
Yeah.
And this was nobody did anything about it. Nobody protested. Nobody stood up. No, everybody wanted to stay employed. You got to do the right thing. You don't want to be known as the band that, or the guy. It was just a weird atmosphere that was going around, and this was not a big secret. We've lived in a time of profound change in our country, and it's not ending. I remember, in the 80s, I was a director on a show called INLA. And I remember one of the stories they sent me down to cover was how seedy and tawdry the Hollywood, downtown Hollywood was, particularly Sunset Boulevard and Hollywood Boulevard, where literally there were like hundreds of colorfully attired hookers working every night. Yep.
Well, we don't do that anymore. We cleaned up Hollywood, and we're going to have to clean up the product part of Hollywood a little better now too, and that's forward progress. And I mean, it's complicated. I don't know everything about it. I'm no expert. These are just mostly opinions that I've got, but it's clear to me that a lot of intelligent, decent people in town are trying to grapple with this issue, and it'll probably be a better town as a consequence.
With the JFK document dump from a couple of weeks ago, there were a couple of items in there that referred to exactly what we're talking about here. It's very strange that it was there, but that JFK was part of some of these Hollywood shindigs.
He's not the only part. I mean, I'm under no obligation to hide this story anymore. So I'll tell you a story about JFK that I was told by someone who was at the party, obviously. But the story goes like this. In 1960, in the summer, when the Democrats nominated JFK, he ended up at a party at Peter Lawford's house. He'd just been nominated to be president. He was there with Marilyn Monroe, which is 1960. So when the people tell you they didn't hook up until 62, that's not true. They hooked up in 1960. They were obviously a couple at that. I'm not a couple, but they were having an encounter at that time. And JFK came back after that and had been drinking and literally was in the middle of PCH saying, "I'm going to be the effing president of the United States," in an inebriated state. And those people in the party had to go pull him off PCH. That's the kind of parties that were going on back then. So, and that's referred to, that kind of stuff is what J. Edgar Hoover was looking through in those documents. And I can't remember. There's one of them. It's a 1960 FBI memo that describes those sex parties that involved JFK and Lawford and Sinatra and Davis. And they were one, the memo that I saw was sort of speculating whether they were true or not. I believe they are true or were true.
Well, and then you have, again, back to Hollywood, the Playboy Mansion and Hefner and the parties in Toluca Lake and the Hollywood Hills and Brentwood. It was a way of life right? It was a way of life, and I don't think that...
It was, but I will tell you this. I have a good friend, a very good friend. I'm not going to give her name, but she was a young woman, a very attractive young woman in the day, and she's still an attractive woman, but she was an attractive, super young woman, and she was invited to these parties at Hefner's Playboy Mansion, and from her point of view, she was always treated very well and respectfully. She said there was nothing untoward as far as she was concerned. So it's interesting. Everybody has these different experiences, and we're trying to piece together policy out of experience, and it's all very, challenging.
Do you think the media is handling this Hollywood sex scandal appropriately?
Not necessarily, but I don't know what the solution is. These are not easy. I mean, because it's about sex, it's hard to write it in a way that isn't somewhat titillating. I mean, to read the Harvey, how many people at the office, we may not talk about television series that we all watched last night at the water cooler, but for the last month, we've sure as hell have been talking about Harvey Weinstein's aberrant behavior at the water cooler.
Yeah.
So, it's out there. The media has done the best it could, I think, with probably a few exceptions, but has done the best it could to try to cover it in a way that isn't as sexual as it could be covered. So I don't know. I hope for the best. I just hope for the best.
And then we have, I think all of us have lost sight of one of the things that I think is extraordinary right now, Bryce, is the headlines every day somehow have managed to top the headlines from the day before. They're getting bigger and broader and crazier and nuttier. These headlines are out of control.
I have two thoughts about that. That's why it really worries me about North Korea, because we've had headlines about things that I've never thought could happen, and that would be one of them. Which, a shooting war with nuclear weapons would be something that would be really bad. And also the fact that we're having these headlines, as you said, that are just coming at us relentlessly. That does give me some hope that one of those headlines is going to have something to do with UFO disclosure, because that's the ultimate big shocker headline that I've been thinking about for years. And I think we may be approaching a time where, ironically, the amount of shocking news that we absorb on a nearly daily basis will probably render UFO disclosure just another story of the moment.
Yeah, it takes the shock value out of it, and it could all be done by design. I mean, you've been right. You've written about this quite a bit.
Yeah.
But before we head to this break, this is what is really nuts here. We're talking about today Harvey Weinstein and Kevin Spacey but we just 2 months ago, it was Bill O'Reilly and Roger Ailes. You know, how is that possible that could be topped is what I'm saying. And before that, it was Bill Cosby. We're talking about some very big names here, and somehow we have forgotten about Bill O'Reilly. $100 million worth of cash that he was, that's nuts.
And he paid one woman $32 million. So you generally don't give someone $32 million for doing nothing.
It's crazy. And how do we, these headlines keep getting bigger and bigger every single day. And
well, one thing that we can say for sure, though, is part of the reason is we live in a world where with the social media and the technology and the coverage, things are harder for anybody who's a bad actor. It's harder to sweep anything under the rug. So while it's tempting to pile on the media, part of this saturation with the media is also a good thing in that, things that are bad and need to be taken care of, they're being taken care of in their own weird way.
Why do you think with these headlines getting bigger and bigger and bigger, do you think it's taking us off of the prize? The citizenry, us, is it taking our eyes off of what is important, and it is allowing the man in the background to run amok because we are too busy fighting amongst ourselves and discussing Kevin Spacey and Harvey Weinstein.
Well, there's, I mean, certainly some people think that, and there's a case that could be made for that. But I think if you take the long historical view, you'd say people have always been getting distracted by one thing or another. I mean, it's not unique to our time. What's unique to our time is our ability to distract ourselves with something new every 5 seconds and have it careen around the world in real time. That's all new. But in terms of people not getting involved in the important issues of the day because they're too worried about crazy stuff that's unimportant, well, they've been doing that forever too. So
they have,
Yeah.
And you just brought up North Korea, right?
Yeah.
And that is, if there is anything that can take North Korea off of the headlines, I mean, how is that even possible? But we've had the Las Vegas shooting, or the shooting this weekend in Texas, so tragedy, hurricanes, and natural disasters, and everything has been covering up the crazy news of the day before, like, for instance, hydrogen bombs being tested in North Korea.
Yeah, I mean, all of that is extremely troubling. And by the way, I recall that earlier in your program, you were talking about if only certain things might happen, then we wouldn't be worried about, well, the thing that could happen that could get people on the planet at least talking like they were on the same side might be this UFO disclosure. It's probably one of the few really positives of UFO disclosure, that it allows us to see our humanity and our common humanity more than it allows us to see the things that divide us. So I would hope that would be a good thing for us in the future.
We'll pick that up right after the break. Our guest tonight, Bryce Zabel. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. This is Fade to Black, and I'm wondering why, hold on, my music isn't queued up. You got to love this, Bryce. You just got to love.
I'm so sorry.
It's called live radio. That's what it's called. Our guest tonight.
But it's so damn exciting. That's the thing.
More with Bryce right after this short break. You can follow Bryce at Bryce Zabel. Cyber Bryce. This is Fade to Black. We'll be right back.
Way out here, we listen to Jimmy Church.
You're listening to Fade to Black.
Always on the edge of the hottest alternative talk. Jimmy Church with Fade to Black. KGRARadio.com.
¿Qué tal, mis amigos? Yo soy Mario Carsoner Tiburón y los invito para que escuchen a mi buen amigo Jimmy Church Radio. ¡Claro que sí!
Hurricanes, earthquakes, wildfires. This year we've experienced more than our fair share. This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black, and last month I decided to make sure my family does not have to worry about food should we get caught in a real emergency situation. Introducing Numana, a healthy, storable product that tastes so good that you'll want to eat it every day instead of just during those times of duress. All Numana products have a 25-year shelf life, are MSG and GMO-free, no preservatives, and are made in America. With the Numana pack in your home, you'll be able to sleep at night knowing that you've protected your family. Not only have I tasted and tested, I own it. Now you can too. Just click on the Numana banner on JimmyChurchRadio.com and use the promo code Jimmy when you order. In addition to a discount, we'll send you an autographed Fade to Black t-shirt. Seriously. Go Beckley Tappy.
Do you worry a lot? Whether you're a college student, busy professional, parent, or grandparent, ongoing stress and elevated levels of the stress hormone cortisol can rob your memory, your health, and your future. Now you can combat the effects of stress and anxiety while improving your memory and recall at the same time with the dietary supplement Calm and Clever. Studies show that the ingredients in Calm and Clever reduce cortisol by as much as 30% in 1 to 2 weeks. Call 1-800-758-8746 or calmandclever.com.
You listen to us, and we listen to you. And so does the CIA. KGRARadio.com.
Hi, folks. CBD is the home run hitter for health right now. Why, you ask? Because of what it does for the body. Unfortunately, I can't tell you all about the benefit. You know, there's reasons. Do your due diligence and log on to ancientlifeoil.com. That's ancientlifeoil.com. Ancient Life Oil uses organic ingredients and is blended in coconut oil for some of the best benefits. Legal in 50 states and non-psychoactive. Log on to ancientlifeoil.com. That's ancientlifeoil.com.
You are listening to Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Network.
Oi, oi, I'm Reese Evans. You're listening to Jimmy Church. This is Revolution. The revolution will not be televised. The revolution is on radio. Ciao.
Welcome back. Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Follow me on Twitter at JChurchRadio. You can follow Bryce at Bryce Zabel. I think it's Cyberblaze. Is that what it is, Bryce? Cyberblaze?
Well, are we back on?
Yeah, we're back on.
Okay, well, you know what? Cyberblaze, it's interesting. I was walking with a friend once, and we were talking about how Dick Cavett was the perfect guy that could come up with an anagram on the spot. He famously... he could just, you could give him a long thing and he'd anagram it. So my friend goes, well, you know, your name is Cyberblaze. And I'd never thought of that before, which was pretty interesting. So that's why I use Cyberblaze at Bryce Zabel, because it's my anagram. And an anagram is a terrible thing to waste, as we all know.
Is that really an anagram?
Yeah. I mean, Bryce is cyber and, you know, Blaze.
There's the Z. The Z's and Z.
Yeah.
I'm like, where's the Z? Yeah, duh.
So it's like, and here's the funny thing about it. Now I'm getting a lot of feedback. So
you're okay here.
I'm okay. All right.
No, I've lost you. Oh, that was interesting. Okay. Oh, man. All right. I'm going to do a hard reset just like this. Boom. Done. I'm going to do a hard reset here. We'll see if we get Bryce back. It's weird. All
right.
Yeah. Are you there?
Are we back?
Yeah, we're back. You're good.
Okay. I love live radio. I mean, come on. That's great.
Bryce?
You know, I'm still getting your ads in my ear here. So.
Oh, that's what you're tripping on. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Hold on for a second. See, nobody else can hear that but you.
Yeah.
And that's why you're tripping. Okay. How's that?
That's so much better. Boy. Okay. So, yes, Cyberblaze. Now, just to finish that story, what's funny about it is, so I came home and I went, oh, I got the great new handle. I'll be on Twitter. You know, I'm at Bryce Zabel, but I'll call myself Cyberblaze. It'll be funny. And, my son informed me that to cyberblaze means to smoke pot with somebody while you're on the internet together.
Oh.
That you're not in the same room, but you're each getting high together. And I thought, well, that kind of takes some of the edge off the cyberblaze excitement, but I liked it so much I've kept it. I figured, you know, what the heck.
Well, I have to ask, have you cyberblazed?
I haven't actually. Okay. I'm not opposed to it. It's not a moral prescription that I would follow against it, but I just didn't realize that was a thing. I mean, I'm not sure even that it should be a thing. I mean, if you're going to get high, it'd be nice to get high with somebody instead of, long distance. But who knows? I mean, who's the judge?
See, now you're sounding old.
I don't want to sound old. In fact, everyone call me and we'll all cyberblaze. That's what'll happen.
You know what they're doing right now in Twitter? I can check right now. Everybody's, man, let's cyberblaze.
Okay. Well, you know what? Let that be our contribution. If we've kickstarted that. That's good.
Every time we say cyberblaze, everybody take a pull off the bong. There'll be some Periscope live tweets. Okay, now let's go back for a second.
Yeah.
Back to the disclosure aspect of this. What you just suggested, as we all know, Ronald Reagan, United Nations, got right up there and said those exact things.
Absolutely. And he wasn't wrong.
Do you believe that he believed in what he was saying?
Oh, I do. Ronald Reagan. Well, first of all, we could do an entire show about the relationship between U.S. presidents and UFOs, but that's not why we're here tonight. But I will. But we brought up Reagan. Let's talk about him. Reagan had a couple of UFO sightings. One of them in a small private plane, and he literally. This says something great about Reagan. I mean, God bless him. Instead of saying "Get the hell out of here," there's a UFO. He instructed his pilot to chase it, which was kind of interesting. And he and Nancy saw a major UFO once, I believe, on PCH.
That's right.
And he went to a party that night and he was talking about it, and one of his advisors came to him and said, "Sir, why don't we just downplay this? Let's not be talking about this right now." But Reagan definitely had seen UFOs twice, and and close up, particularly with the light plane, and he definitely believed it. In fact, he's famous for having said to Steven Spielberg at the E.T. screening in the White House, there aren't, there's only a couple of people, there's only two people in this room who know how true this is, meaning him and Spielberg. So, yeah, Reagan totally got that that we were being visited, and he thought that it would be a good thing if we all started to act like it.
There's been a lot of drip of disclosure, especially over the last couple of years. It's been pretty obvious. The discovery of exoplanets and fast radio burst and life out there and life here and confirming, contact and or attempting to confirm contact. This is it's never been, a weekly thing like it is now. Of course, we don't need to bring up Jimmy Kimmel and presidents and all of that, but it has happened.
Well, I mean, we should bring it up, but I'll tell you one thing. Here's the distinction I continue to draw. I believe the evidence is strong, if not overwhelming, that at least some of the things flying around in our skies are from someplace that isn't here, and they're being piloted by somebody that isn't us. That much I'm pretty sure of. And I think that what's odd about you talk about the drip, but it's a drip of people talking about, oh, look at these, there's a new planet. Maybe there's life out there, or looking, SETI, looking for radio signals. And it just strikes me as the greatest hypocrisy. We have all this profound evidence about actual things happening here on Earth for a long, long time. And we don't talk about that. But it's okay to look for radio signals. It's okay to speculate that there might be a microbe on Mars. But we don't talk about the fact that there are machines flying around in our skies that aren't ours. I mean, how crazy is that? If nothing else, we need to restore some sanity to this academic pursuit of trying to understand these devices. They're not ours. They're not the Russians. They're not the Chinese. And they're not ours. So they belong to somebody, and they've been here for a very long time, perhaps that many thousands of years, and they've been here in greater numbers in the last 70 years. And I think we should talk about it.
Well, with when I went to broadcast school, I had brought up probably somebody that that one of the teachers there who worked at CNN, right, in Hollywood. So we're creating donuts, right, for everybody out there. That's a news package that you put together, and you speak in the middle of it as a reporter, and then you have your video that runs on both sides of it. Anyway, so we're doing that, and I said to him, I said, so we were out there doing man on the street stuff, whatever, and I said, hey, what if me, what if I had a UFO story, could I go to, would you, if you had a news, would you go to your news director and say, he goes, hey man, we don't do UFO.
No, nobody does UFOs.
I was like, what if? I kept saying, but what if, dude? No UFOs.
I'm telling you, when I was at CNN, if I had said to somebody, why don't we do a story about UFOs? That would have been the end of my CNN career right there. I mean, there's just no willingness to talk about it. Now, even at CNN, though, things did change when Larry King started talking about them.
That's right.
I was there before Larry, so back in the days when you didn't talk about it. Increasingly, we do talk about it, but we couch. If you believe UFOs are real and here, then you're a UFO buff. Well, I'm not a buff. I'm not a hobbyist. I'm a guy that's looking at the facts and saying, I can't make sense of these facts with ordinary explanations, and I need to hear a little bit more about what this all means. And given what we know about physics and the size of the universe and the number of planets and stars and all that out there, I mean, I got in an argument with Carl Sagan once during my career because I'd interviewed him about the Saturn encounter, and we were in the parking lot, and I said, I just don't understand. You say that the universe is teeming with life, and in fact, you've been made fun of for saying there's billions upon billions of planets. So if the universe is teeming with life, there are billions and billions of planets, and you want us to send out Voyagers and spacecraft to explore the universe, why are you unable to accept the reality or the possibility even that somebody else has come here to look at us? And I still don't get that.
And he
just said that the extraordinary claims require extraordinary proof, and he hadn't seen the proof. So I did get a little bit of take my vengeance later when in Dark Skies. I made Carl Sagan a character who had been told the truth about UFOs in exchange for him poo-pooing them and being a debunker to everybody else. So that's how I took my revenge.
Has the past chairman CEO of the Television Academy seen anything strange in the skies that he can't explain?
I kind of wish I had, because it made it make a better story, but I haven't. I from time to time I've seen things, but when you're looking in the sky and you go, well, that's odd, I wonder what that is. But none that would rise to the level where I just go, that's just unexplainable. However, I will say this. You don't have to have seen something. You can just be well read. You can look into it and you see the evidence. The other thing that in my life has been kind of intriguing is I'm celebrating my 25th year since I made a movie about UFOs. 25 years ago, I made a movie called Official Denial for the Sci-Fi Channel, and then followed that up with Dark Skies. So people in my life knew that I had an interest in the material. And for the last 25 years, people just out of nowhere say, you're the guy that did that UFO series. And I'll say, yeah. And they go, I've never talked to anybody about this, but, and then they proceed to tell me a story that'll make your hair stand on its end. So these are people who were told to keep quiet by their family members or whatever, and because they'll be ridiculed, and they tell me their stories because they figure I won't laugh at them. And I just think, given that this is a true phenomenon that we're living through right now, how silly is it that if people want to talk about it, they get ridiculed? And how silly is it that, if I went to a party and started talking about UFOs with just the average people I was meeting at the party, you kind of get treated like the drunk uncle at the party. People kind of like, oh, there he goes again. And that's crazy. This is a real phenomenon, that is a mystery, that we're not quite sure what it all means. We don't have the facts yet, Tom DeLonge notwithstanding. And I think it deserves more respect, and it deserves more legitimacy from the people out there who are academics and scientists. And that is one thing, by the way, I'd say that's good about what Tom DeLonge's doing. He's dragged some of these people who are these scientific types out into the light of day, and they're backing us up on this.
There are, and you've heard the same stories, there are people out there in our community, when they talk about you and they talk about Spielberg and that you two have been read in, that you're
Right.
privy to information.
Right.
If you were read in, I don't know if you were, would you tell us about it?
Yeah, I would. I'll tell you that I might have been read in, and not knowing it.
What?
I mean, you know, it's interesting. This, as you know, when we launched Dark Skies, we said that we had been approached by someone to try to tell this story under the cover of fiction to protect the innocent, and that was sort of how the series began. And I won't go into that story, but I will tell you that what happened during the production of Dark Skies, and you and I have talked about this before, so I won't belabor your audience with the whole details. But what happened is Brent Friedman, my producing partner and writing partner on Dark Skies, and I, the Dark Skies party to launch the series had been crashed by somebody who none of us knew, and who said that he had been tasked to come to the party to open up lines of communication with us because they had seen the pilot. Now, the pilot hadn't aired yet. They had seen the pilot. They thought we got a lot of things right, but we got some things wrong, and they wanted to talk to us. Well, that was interesting, but I didn't have a lot of time to talk to this guy. There's more to that story, too. I won't go into all that. But this guy said, you need to meet my bosses. And Brent agreed to let him come to the studio, and these two guys came to the studio who looked very much like lean, tough, 30-something military guys. They said they were with naval intelligence, and they proceeded for a couple of hours to basically brief us on what they said was going on in the field of UFOs. And it was fascinating, but I was in the middle of producing a television series. I really didn't have a lot of time, and I didn't know if they were serious or whatever. And at the end of the 2 hours, they said, look, I guess it's time for you to meet the boss. The big boss. And we said, well, where is that? And they said, well, you'll have to come down to Long Beach because he's on a ship down there, and he'll meet you on land. And we said, well, when would that be? Under what circumstances? And this is the part, there's things about ufology that are so crazy. You go, well, that's just stupid, insane. And yet they're part of these stories. Well, this is that part of that story. The guy said that we would have to meet the boss at midnight in a cemetery. And I have 3 kids. And the first thing I did is push back from the table and say, okay, this meeting's over.
Right.
And I just ended the meeting and never saw those guys again. But they were quite serious. I mean, and in fact, their whole attitude was so sort of dismissive of us personally. It was sort of like, well, you're just Hollywood guys, but okay, you've got some power, so we're going to tell you what it is, but try to keep up. Their attitude was just like, I know you're of limited mental capacity, right, and this is a big story, but here's what's happening. And so I've always, you
regret it, don't you?
Well, I don't regret meeting somebody in a cemetery at midnight. I think that's a good way to get your ass kicked or killed.
Right.
And I don't regret not doing that, but I do miss not hearing what that person might have said.
Did they tell you who he was?
Yeah, he was, I didn't take notes. I don't know if they told us not to take notes or whether I just didn't take notes. So I can't remember exactly. I thought it was an admiral or something. I mean, I know it was like the guy a major guy in the Navy, in naval intelligence.
Oh, man. Bryce.
I know.
Oh, man.
I know. Now, I will tell you, I'll give you one fascinating little bit then. At one point, the guy pulls out a little vial. You've seen those little sample vials with the black top, that screw top, and it's a glass little vial. And he just takes it out of his pocket, slams it onto the table and says, you want to know why they're here? This is why they're here. And I pick this thing up and look at it. It's got gold in it.
Really?
Yeah.
Man, Bryce, now if you could knowing what you know today, right? And you're speaking about DeLong and disclosure and in our community.
It's very similar to what DeLong's saying
you passed up an opportunity that and I get email every day suggesting some pretty crazy stuff, and I don't know what to follow up on and what not, but I haven't had the Men in Black show up and say, hey, let's go hang out, we're gonna do a 2-hour presentation.
It was strange, and look, I'm a reporter and an investigative reporter. I'm not naive. I've got a pretty good bullshit detector when I'm being played. Mm-hmm. Not perfect, but good. And the reason I ended up speaking to these guys for the time I did, is they didn't seem tenuous at all. They seemed like military guys, and they seemed like they knew a lot. And so we listened to them. And as long as we're backfilling here, at the party, the Dark Skies party, which was at my house, right? So here's a guy crashing a party at my house.
Right.
And I didn't have a lot of time to talk to him, but Brent did. And at one point, this guy pulled out grabbed a napkin and started writing on it, writing a bunch of symbols and shit on it. And we said, "What's that?" And he said, "Secret of the Universe." And I was like, "Secret of the Universe?" And he goes, "Sound, light, frequency."
Yeah, I remember that. I
don't know what that means. I looked that up. I haven't seen anybody talking about that. I don't know what that means.
Well, that's because it's a secret. But
I guess
I did ask you before where that napkin is.
Yes, and Brent has it.
Okay.
And one of the things that I'm looking forward to doing is I'm speaking at the IUFOC conference in Phoenix in February. I'm getting the napkin from Brent. We're going to photograph it. We're going to have that up, and that's going to be part of the presentation.
Oh, very cool. Very
cool.
And
of course, I'll call you before I go there and tell you all about it.
Well, when we're talking about disclosure, we're talking about the drip, 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 and DeLong certainly, who does not need any financial gain, right? He's already gained the finances. Yes. So he doesn't really have any skin in the race when it comes to that aspect of it. But this drip, 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 it hasn't been talked like in the public, not like this. This isn't the 1970s. We're talking about today in 2017. I feel like there's something about to break, but when it does, we've been so desensitized that it just may get lost in that 24-minute news cycle that we're in now.
That is a valid point of view. I don't think that's going to happen. And there's only one reason for that, which is I don't care how busy and media saturated we are. This is, if it is true, and if there is something worth talking about, it's the biggest of the big. So in other words, it redefines everything. I mean, once you admit that it isn't life out there we're looking for, but that life out there has come here, then it raises so many questions. It's about it, and it redefines everything from government to military security to education to the medical business, the science of physics, and I mean everything changes almost overnight. That will be a story that goes on decades.
Well, you've written about this, and let me ask you: has your attitude changed with that? Do you think that we, and I'm talking about globally, to every country, do you think we can handle it?
Yeah, I think we can handle it. It's sort of the way I always explain. It won't be perfect. It'll be a bit messy. It's like if you remember Dr. Strangelove. There's a character played by George C. Scott who plays General Buck Turgidson. Mm-hmm. And he's talking about nuclear war, but you could apply it to disclosure. And he says, I ain't saying we're not going to get our hair mussed.
It's one of the best lines in the movie.
I think so. And I guess that's what I would say to you. I ain't saying we're not going to get our hair mussed, but we'll handle it. It'll be a little crazy, and it will redefine things. But it's crazy now.
We're going to lose 25 million max.
Yeah. I mean, we're in it. Yeah, exactly. Boy, that's a great film. I just saw it again. It was fantastic.
Yeah, we watch it all the time. That's a once a month thing around here. Let's take a quick break right here. Our guest tonight, Bryce Zabel. When we come back, we got to talk about what if the Beatles would have stayed together. Yeah. We'll do all of that next. We'll take your phone calls, and we're going to give away some books. Stay with us.
Hi everybody, this is Rob Halford, the Metal Guard on JimmyChurchRadio.com.
This is KGRA Digital Broadcasting Station, Salt Lake City, Utah, Van Buren, Arkansas.
Okay, nurse, let's get this man to the ER stat.
Right away, doctor.
We see this every day. Heart attack or angina pain due to blocked and clogged arteries. Chelation can remove obstructions or blockages from arteries and help avoid painful and expensive surgery. Now there's Angioprim. It's a liquid oral chelation product that you take with juice. You start to feel the results fast. Angioprim increases blood flow all over the body, and that means more energy and strength to take on the day with less aches and pains. 60 years of research has gone into chelation, and Angioprim is the result. A safe and easy way to unblock your veins and arteries from buildup that slow circulation.
Paging Dr. Jones. Please report to the emergency room right away.
Log on now for a special radio offer from Angioprim. That's angioprim.com/radio. ANGIOPRIM. Angioprim.com/radio or call 877-882-7221. That's 877-882-7221.
So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7 with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on any smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
Your contact for current news and trending topics. KGRARadio.com.
Hello, Fadernauts. This is Jimmy Church, and I'm introducing New Pharma, a company whose products are based on science. Human function based on the endocannabinoid system, or ECS. New Pharma firmly believes in this science, and their research indicates that support of the ECS provides the beneficial effects for a healthy lifestyle. New Pharma's science includes relief capsules for pain relief, sleep capsules, which are natural support for occasional sleeplessness. Foundation is support for your ECS, and Fit capsules support your active lifestyle. Just click on the banner at JimmyChurchRadio.com and use the promo code F2B for a 33% discount on all of their products. Or visit newpharma.com for all of the knowledge on the science. That's GNUpharma.com. Go Backley Tappy. Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or Wi-Fi available, you can still listen to every minute of Fade to Black by just calling 605-562-4482. No smartphone, app, or internet needed. It saves your data plan and no extra cost if you have unlimited minutes. Just call 605-562-4482. You can listen to me, Jimmy Church, on any phone, anytime, anywhere. Go Backley Tappy.
You want to know a secret? I love ponies. I really love ponies. I'm serious. I couldn't stay sane without ponies to brush.
Why Fade to Black? Because you never got that pony, damn it.
This is Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, the Global Radio Alliance.
All right, welcome back. Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Talking to Bryce Zabel tonight. All subjects are on the table, and we've done a pretty good job covering just about everything. including cyber blazing. And Bryce, I'm just going to tell you right now, you have no idea what you did to Twitter. These photographs,
I'm so sorry.
man.
Yeah.
I got to tell you, I'm going to send a couple of these to you. This is what you've done.
Okay.
But cyber blazing is a thing. Your son was right.
Oh boy. Well, okay.
I can confirm. All right, now this is I'm going to open up the phone lines now, 323-825-5045. And we'll take some questions for Bryce and make the questions good, and you'll get a book, okay? You'll get his new Beatles book, or maybe even if Bryce is feeling good, he'll go outside of that and we'll do one of his JFK books or something. But 323-825-5045. And one of the things you love writing alternative history.
I do,
and I want to bring up a subject with that, which is the Mandela effect, or the possibility of parallel worlds or timelines that are crossing.
Right.
Maybe in another world, right to our left or right, the Beatles are still together.
Well, if physicists have anything to say about it, that's probably true, because they do basically say there can be an infinite number of realities. Although the book series I've been writing is called Breakpoint, and I try not. It's not a time travel series. It's not a parallel universe series. There's not a science fiction aspect. What I try to do is take a rather high concept what if and find a place where history breaks in a different way. The first book was called Surrounded by Enemies, What If Kennedy Survived Dallas? That's the easiest breakpoint you can do,
right.
Because the breakpoint could be pretty simple. He doesn't die in Dallas. And then you're off in your new adventure. And I take these very seriously. I try to make them build a credible world, which could be an alternative universe, I guess. So the Kennedy one, by the way, if anyone wants that book, it's whatifjfk.com. You can find that. But for the second in the series, I've always been compelled by these moments of loss. We lost JFK. What if we didn't? Well, we lost the Beatles in 1969 and 1970, and it would have been nice if we hadn't. Who among us, doesn't think it would be nice if we could have gotten a few more years out of them? After all, they were contemporaries of the Rolling Stones, and the Rolling Stones are still playing right now. So that could have been a reality for us. So I wrote a book called Once There Was a Way, What If the Beatles Stayed Together? It will be out December 5th. You could get a copy of it right now. We're going to give away 3 of them, but you can pre-order it right now at AmazonBeatles.com, or you can go to the site whatifbeatles.com. Either way, it's the newest book. It's coming out, and I wrote it because the truth is sometimes you want to read a book and you can't find the exact book that you want anywhere. That was very true about the Beatles. So I wrote it, and it was hard. Because the Beatles fans are very discriminating, but I've done the best I can, and I'm pretty proud of it, and I hope people get a chance to look at it.
Were you a Beatles fan?
Sure. Although I remember when, at the exact time, my friends and I were kind of Beach Boys guys, and my friends' sisters were all Beatles fans. Now, of course, I became a Beatles fan and have been all my life. And I really miss the fact that they didn't get to stay together. So I created the world where they did. And it's fun.
So what would you have wanted to be? I know you wrote about it, but what did you want the world to be if they didn't break up?
Well, here's the thing. I wouldn't want it to be a jokey world, something that couldn't happen. I tried to live in the real fabric of what their world was like. People say, for example, that Yoko Ono broke up the Beatles. Well, you could make an argument for that. But on the other hand, you could easily make an argument that these guys, if they wanted to stay together, could have survived Yoko Ono, no matter how troublesome she was. But if you're going to give the credit to Yoko Ono for breaking them up, then you would also have to give the possibility that if Yoko behaved differently, they could have figured out how to stay together. So I've tried to make a lot of credible decisions about that, because I didn't want to create a fantastic, it could never happen world. I wanted to create a world where you could actually see an alternate history. Now, I will say I've gone out of my way to add some suspense, some thrills, and some, I'm a television writer. I'm a dramatist, so I threw some serious drama into the whole thing that I think will reward readers and make them really smile and have a good time.
Do you remember about, man, I want to say it was about 5 years ago. It could have been a little longer, where this this tape surfaced on the internet of the Beatles. This guy time traveled right? Yeah. Did you listen to that tape?
Yeah, listen, that's I've seen that kind of stuff. I mean, I guess I was trying to transcend that kind of it's kind of low rent. I mean, in fact, there's all kinds of people over the years that have said, well, I put together my own Beatles album of what they would have put out if they were solo artists or whatever. And they spend 5 minutes on it and act like, they've nailed it. I think it's much more complicated than that. First of all, it is true that it would be wonderful if you take the best of the solo Beatles. Imagine a Beatles album that had Ringo Starr singing Photograph and McCartney doing Band on the Run and, Lennon's Imagine and Harrison's All Things Must Pass. As Beatles songs, that would be fantastic. But I would say this, if the Beatles had stayed together, they wouldn't have just replicated their solo work. They would have also been exposed to different experiences, and they would have written different music that doesn't exist at all. And in fact, one of the things that we're going to be debuting next month is working with musician Brian Bringleson and his group Anchor and Bear. We've put together a Beatles song that never was but could have been, and we're going to be debuting a video and the song itself next month. And it's kind of fun. It's a song that was in my book's world recorded at George Harrison's Friar Park Estate in 1971, and we all know the Beatles didn't exist then, but they do in my book, and they record this song.
Have you met any of the Beatles?
I've been at Beatles concerts. Here's one quick Beatles story that I think is kind of fun. I was kind of working at a hippie radio station in Eugene, Oregon, when McCartney was on his Wings Across America tour. And one day after I got off the news, the program director steps into my office and holds out a ticket, and he hands it to me, and he says, I just got word that if it's going to happen, it's going to happen tonight. Get in your car and go. So he hands me a ticket to the Wings Across America concert at the Seattle Kingdome. I jump in my 1965 Mustang and drive like a bat out of hell to get up there. The whole way, just like my atoms are vibrating. I may see the Beatles reunited. It didn't happen that night, but I always thought how great it would have been. And I think many of the people who will enjoy this book have had that same experience. What would it have been like to experience the Beatles as a growing, vibrant group all through your lives? I mean, wouldn't that be interesting? So that's what I've tried to deliver to people.
The Wings Across America, that tour, that era for me was one of the best. And I thought that Paul really got his feet on the ground, but the band was pretty badass too as well.
They were, but the thing I remember about that going up to the Kingdome that night was McCartney still hadn't gotten over the Beatles, so he didn't want to play Beatles music. Now he does all the time now. He completely owns his history, but at that time most of the concert was Wings songs, which we all liked, but they weren't Beatles songs. And he sort of begrudgingly at the end of that concert played like 5 or 6 songs, as I recall, that were Beatles songs. And now, of course, he sort of accepts himself, his history and everything, and it's all a big fun party, and you get to, think about the Beatles again. And I guess the thing is, we all think about the Beatles. We all know that they're never going to happen. George is dead. John is dead. It's never going to happen. So maybe for a few minutes when you read my book, you can imagine what it would have been like if it had. Yeah,
before I get to the phones, I've gone back and forth. This is what's really weird for me. Personally, I was more of a Rolling Stones guy, right? They were edgier.
I knew that about you. I just assumed that.
But then I kind of went back, and as I started to grow up, and went back and started listening to the Beatles, not only Sgt. Pepper's, but you go back to Meet the Beatles, right? You go back to that first. That was some extraordinary stuff that was going down, and I appreciate them more today than back then. But I was going back and forth, and then I went through a period. I'll say it, man. I really thought that the Stones kind of sucked, and that the Beatles were the real musicians. And then so I went back and forth. I was never in one camp or the other. But let's go to the phones. Hi, you're live on Fade to Black. Who's calling?
Hi, this is Megan.
Hi, Megan. How are you? Say hi to Bryce.
Hi, Bryce.
Hey, Megan.
Story about the Beatles and everything else that you've been speaking of. It's quite refreshing to hear from somebody in your position to talk about disclosure and being open, and what you've experienced personally, where a lot of people wouldn't really feel comfortable doing that. So thank you for speaking out.
My pleasure.
I kind of have two-parter. I don't know if I have time or not to be able to do, but first, the comment about I'm huge into music and I love music, and, singer, still am a singer, whatever, musician. The challenge that I would think that the Beatles might have, and I don't know if this is in your book, which I'm going to get, is whether or not over time they would have to start having to reinvent themselves like they had already done a couple of times, right?
Yes.
I think loses their essence in the first place, the essence of what made them popular and what so many bands and after them had built their base line of music from, like the Descendants. They tended to be a big bass line for punk music, but they were inspired by the Ramones. So there's like all these like lines of discovery that I would think that would be lost over time. I know, Aerosmith hasn't really lost their verve, but they I don't want to put them down, but they kind of have, like they're not there, like you people, a lot of people, as in the past, don't go and see them as much. But I have still a lot of respect for them. So I guess my point is if that's in the book, then then that part of my commentary is over. But if it's not, I'm really curious what your thoughts are on that. Like, do you think that they would have lost their essence?
Well, I think that they would always have worried about losing their essence. I mean, the Beatles were a restive, dynamic musical force, and that they wouldn't have stopped just because they stayed together. But the Beatles staying together would certainly have changed a dynamic. Right now, they're like a fly frozen in amber. They're mythical, and they wouldn't have been mythical in the same way had they stayed together. They would have become somewhat like the Stones. They would be the most famous rock and roll group still playing if they were still playing. So one of the ways that I approach that in the book, and the book is written from the point of view of like a Rolling Stone style magazine looking back on the Beatles, and the book focuses on the years of what I call maximum danger. And by maximum danger, I mean to the existence of the group. And those years are 68, 69, 70, 71, 72, 73, 74, 75. Those are the years that the book focuses on. It does, at the end, talk about the longer frame. And I think clearly in the years that I'm focused on, you can take a lot of inspiration from the work that they did as solo artists, because it was a very, very strong amount of good work as solo artists. But I think the Beatles, I think you're absolutely right. I take your point perfectly. The Beatles, none of us would want to see the Beatles become an ordinary band, and least of all them. They would never have wanted that. But
exactly. I mean, would they break up just to stay,
fade away, just fade away. Playing Vegas.
But at the end of the day, though, I read a lot about them. Just like for JFK, I read 50 JFK books. I read a lot of Beatles books and thought a lot about it. And if you think about it, John Lennon himself was was inspired by and proud of being a rock and roll band, right? I mean, that was he took a lot of joy in that, even though he pushed the boundaries in so many different ways, but he still at one level believed that it was good to just be great at playing rock and roll. So he could have always fallen back on that, and we would have probably liked that. And the Beatles would never have not reinvented themselves. They would have continually pushed forward. So I put that into the book, and I think you'll be pretty happy with it.
Megan, this is what I want you to do. Just write Rita at jimmychurchradio.com, and you can do it through our website, too, as well, through the contact page. Send us your address, and we will get the first copy of the book out there to you when it's released.
Congratulations.
All right.
Awesome. And Jimmy, one thing we should tell everybody is I haven't seen the book itself. I've read it many times. I've copy edited it. I do not have this physical copy that we're about to send to your listeners. Mine is in the mail right now on the way here. They're going to get this physical copy roughly the same day I do.
There you go, Megan. Enjoy the book.
Neat.
Thank
Thank you so much, Jimmy. Thank you, Bryce.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you. Great phone call. And see, that's a real music and Beatles fan right there.
Oh, yeah.
She's going to love the book.
I think that my greatest trepidation about writing the book is that you can't take anything for granted. You can't talk down to anybody. Everybody knows their stuff. And but the one thing I will say to everybody is, look, if you get 12 Beatles fans in a room and ask them what would have happened if the Beatles kept playing together, you get 12 different opinions. And the only thing probably everybody would agree on is that I'm wrong. So I all I can say is I've given one version in one alternative universe. This is what happened. Everybody else may have their own alternate, but we all respect each other's.
323-825-5045. 323-825-5045. And just make the questions good, and we'll get you the first copies of the book when they're released, just in a couple of weeks, actually, that's coming out. What about the Paul is dead aspect?
Well, that happened in 1969. And, the reality is there was no reality to that. It was just a disc jockey in Wisconsin, as I recall, who sort of made it up. And then it was one of the first things that went viral. And it's a good example, and I'm glad you asked that. All of those kinds of things still happen in the book, but they're impacted by where the Beatles are in their own psyches about playing together and all that. So things that I can't change, I accept and I bend and twist them in this book. So that would be one of them. You will read some pages about Paul being dead, but in a different context than in our world.
I thought that the case was pretty strong.
For Paul being dead?
For Paul being dead. If you are going to... Well, look.
It's okay.
I know. Well, look, I'm open-minded. I really am, and certainly the world is not as it seems, right? So I live my life by that. I try to figure out things. I do not buy what they are selling. So when that came out, and I started to look at the evidence, the scar on the lip, the album covers, the arguments, the driving in his car, where it happened, that's a pretty broad hoax and play. I thought the case had merit.
Well, I mean, God bless you, and we're still great friends. I don't think it had merit in that we know how it started. It was just a guy who blew smoke and it caught on. And then most of the things that you cite were fans sort of throwing logs on that particular fire. But again, what's great about being able to do this alternate history book is it's not my job to win an argument about whether Paul died or didn't die. I mean, I don't believe he died, but and he doesn't actually die in this book. But I'm a dramatist. I could write a movie about Paul being dead, and it wouldn't bother me. But that's not what this book is, I guess, is all I'm saying.
Now, what about the other controversy? Who is a better singer, Ringo Starr or Linda McCartney?
Or Yoko.
Oh, man.
Well, that's not a contest, is it?
Oh, man, that hurt. Yeah.
Listen, See, I love Ringo, and I think that on certain songs his essence is perfect, and so I'm a huge fan, and I can't imagine It Don't Come. I've heard It Don't Come Easy done by George Harrison, who wrote it, and I've heard it done by Ringo, and it belongs as a Ringo song for me. And Linda. I'm not going to pile on Linda McCartney, but because she had some musical abilities, and she, Paul didn't force her to the forefront in quite the same way John forced Yoko to the forefront.
Right.
John and Yoko put themselves out there and said, "Take your best shot." Paul, who had more commercial, interests in mind, tried to cast his wife in a slightly different way in his band, and I think many McCartney and Wings songs you'll hear Linda in it, and it doesn't detract. I don't think.
Yeah, some say that Yoko was a better drummer than Ringo, though.
Are you serious? I don't think so. I'll tell you one thing.
I'm just messing with you.
In 1968, Ringo left during the White Album sessions. He left. He quit the band and left. And all three of the Beatles, tried to do the drums on back in the USSR.
Right.
And they all sucked pretty bad, and they begged Ringo to come back. He came back, and Paul made sure that his drum set was decorated with flowers, and they welcomed him with open arms.
Have you ever seen the video of Chuck Berry and John Lennon with Ringo with Yoko in the background with the cowbell? Have you seen that?
Is that where more cowbell comes from?
Chuck Berry. Yoko tries to sing or does something and walks over Chuck's part, right? And Chuck shoots her a look. A look that you don't want to get from Chuck Berry.
No, you don't want to get that. Listen, she's a controversial person. Although I think she does very well in the book that I've written, because I do believe that while I'm not prepared to be the prosecutor who waves a finger and blames her for breaking up the Beatles, I do believe that she had the ability to be a constructive force had she wished to. So I tried to lean into the better angels of her nature and see how that would work out.
Are you suggesting in your alternative history book here that she kept the Beatles together?
No. I might listen. Part of me, as an author, needs to keep a little suspense in the whole thing. So I guess I could just say I'm not at liberty to tell you. But what I have done is tried to give everybody a place in the sun at some time in the book to be a slightly different person than they were in the world that we understood, but something still within character. So I think you'll see Yoko in a light that slightly will enable you to feel maybe a little better about her.
So we all know about the phases that the Beatles went through, and most people don't realize they did it in a few very short years.
Yes.
The time between Meet the Beatles and Sgt. Pepper and the White Album, it's 5-6 years.
Yeah.
I mean, they transform the music industry in general, right? So going into 1975, did they do disco?
I don't have them doing disco. But even McCartney in our world experimented with disco-like riffs.
Yes.
Because he was trying to, he's always been a good guy about that. He's always tried to reflect our times and things like that. And that's why we love him, I think. I think he tried a little bit of that. Certainly he did. And then said it's really not him. And so he didn't pursue it much further. I don't have the Beatles becoming a disco band. That would be that's the kind of silliness that I've seen people try to portray in their speculations. I didn't go there.
But they did do another phase, though. You don't have to tell me what, but the Beatles.
The Beatles are always an evolutionary rock group, And in fact, I guess I would put it this way. Let's talk about these distinct phases. Distinct phase number one is Beatlemania. That's when the guys with the suits come to America and everybody loves them. That's Beatlemania. Then the second phase is psychedelia, right? Where they start taking drugs and acid and doing Sgt. Pepper's and Magical Mystery Tour and all that. I think I could argue that there is another phase in a continuing Beatles that would be more like Rock Band, where they matured beyond psychedelia and they're better musicians than ever before, and they can do anything they want, and they probably would do it in a way that would blow everybody else away. And that's kind of what I leaned into.
I want to thank you, Bryce, for coming on. Just a great, fantastic show and conversation. Just thank you for everything.
My pleasure.
You're going to be at the International UFO Congress, and that's coming up in February?
Yes, in Phoenix. It's always a good time. As the Beatles would say, a good time guaranteed for all.
Yeah, that's a no-joke conference out there. But what about television and films? You've got one film that will be in production next year. Do you have any TV series coming out? What else?
Real quickly, we are shooting next year in Europe a feature film, big budget feature film called The Last Battle. That is the true story of the last battle of World War II in Europe. It's the only time where Germans and Americans ever fought together. It's one hell of a film. It's being directed by Peter Landesman, who directed Concussion. So that's coming up. And one of the things I'm hoping to do in success, if the Beatles book is a success, the book series of Breakpoint, which currently is the What If about Kennedy, whatifjfk.com, and the Beatles one, whatifbeatles.com, those two what ifs form the essence of what would be an anthological television series. So one season you might do the Beatles, and the next season you might do JFK, and then the next season you might do something else. So that's one of the things I'm pushing forward. And I worked on Lore this year, which is the podcast that Amazon's turned into a TV series. And I'm, in the world of UFOs, we didn't get a chance to talk about it, but I'm working on the Betty and Barney Hill story, Captured, as a feature film. And I'm also working on the story of the race to break the Roswell story between Stanton Friedman and Don Schmidt. And that's called Unidentified.
Yeah, I forgot. I can't believe we didn't even get into that tonight. But that is a story right there. The Don Schmidt, that foo-fa. That's going to be really, 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 really good. I can't imagine what it was like in 1980 when the feeling of this, the word on that this was actually a reality. I'm talking about Roswell and what was going on in New Mexico at that time. It just must have been absolutely incredible.
It's fascinating. And leave you with this thought. I mean, growing up, even if you believed in UFOs, the last thing you believed in is that any of them were crashing anywhere. You just did not believe in UFO crashes. That sounded like a bridge too far. So the fact that Roswell is widely accepted as a true event right now is a phenomenal change in the whole industry. And how we got there is largely because of the fantastic commitment that people like Don Schmidt and his partners and Stanton Friedman and many other researchers all gave to breaking this story, and we owe them a huge debt of gratitude.
Who's going to play Don Schmidt? That's got to be some young, dashing guy with great hair.
It will be. One of the things, people always play that game. I've certainly spent hours playing it, and I've even played it with Don Schmidt. I think what will happen is when the film actually sells, that's when we'll find out, because the way Hollywood works is it isn't until the film is actually set up and going toward production that they start casting. And the director these days is the all-powerful Wizard of Oz on that stuff. So the director will decide, although we've gone through a number of different people. Who do you think should play Don Schmidt?
Well, I would say me 10 years ago. I'd be a shoo-in. But
let's face it. You, me, and Don Schmidt all have that beard, so we're all like we're the triplets here.
Man, you know what? I would like to read for Bill Moore's part, though.
Listen, man, I'll bring you in. I can't make the director like you, but I'll bring you in.
Thank you so much. I look forward to all of it. Best of luck, and I can't wait to get you back on. Thank you so much,
to all
Bryce.
Your listeners. All right, good night.
You got it. Bryce Zabel, everybody. Always a great conversation. BryceZabel.com. All of the links are over at JimmyChurchRadio.com. And I'm going to keep the phone lines open. I'm sorry, I ignored the phone lines because the conversation was correct. And when the conversation is right, I just do that. But we'll continue to give away books right now. 323-825-5045 or 323-275-9695. This is Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Thank you so much, Bryce Zabel. I'll be right back. Cyber Blaze, everybody. Cyber Blaze. I'll be right back.
Listen to my boy, Jimmy Church, on JimmyChurchRadio.com.
Despite popular opinion, reading a book will not make you smarter.
But listening to Jimmy Church will.
So you went to dinner last night, you had your favorite pasta. Ugh. Or maybe you had a heavy, spicy meal and it left you. Ugh. GetTheT.com. Maybe you mowed down a huge steak and your plumbing is all plugged. Ugh. GetTheT.com. Our super strength tea will take care of your occasional. Ugh. It's all organic and non-GMO. Get rid of ugh. We have so many great supplements, but our super tea is number one. GetTheT.com. That's GetTheT.com.
So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7 with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on mobile with any smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
When you take the beans from Central America with dashes of Indonesian and African mixed in and then roasted to the dark side of Fade to Black, you create the ultimate brew of fringe. Introducing the Fade to Black blend from River Moon Coffee. Yes, River Moon's darkest customized roast was created for the love of Fade to Black. The alchemy of masterful roasting and smoking the beans is in every sip of this full-bodied, dark Java. I need my coffee dark, deep, with distinct bittersweet chocolate highlights, just like the bunker. Leaning further into the darkness of the roast is Fade to Black blend from River Moon Coffee. Just click on the banner at JimmyChurchRadio.com and use the promo code F2BBLEND for 15% off of your order today. Go Beckley Teppy.
Hey, can we talk about something serious for a minute? Your age. Getting old has its perks. But remember, being a few years younger, you know, your hair was thicker, you didn't have so many wrinkles, that extra weight wasn't haunting you, and you just felt better. Well, we can't turn back the clocks and go back 10 or 15 years, but you can start feeling and looking 10 or 15 years younger with Nature's Youth RSF. It's a doctor-formulated daily supplement that helps your body maintain its peak performance and fight the aging process. Imagine sleeping better, looking better, and feeling better. See how Nature's Youth RSF has helped thousands of people just like you at nature'syouth.com. nature'syouth.com. The holidays are coming. Imagine how it will feel when your family and friends are asking you what you did to look so good. Your secret will be Nature's Youth RSF. It's time to start looking better and feeling better. Learn more and order your Nature's Youth RSF at nature'syouth.com. That's nature'syouth.com.
It's not a lifestyle we chose. We were born this way. KGRARadio.com.
This is KJCR at JimmyChurchRadio.com.
All right, welcome back. Fade to Black. I want to thank Bryce Zabel for coming in. Brought his A game tonight. Follow me on Twitter at JChurchRadio. You can follow Bryce at Cyberblaze. It's at Bryce Zabel. His name is Cyberblaze on Twitter. But it is refreshing to have Bryce. I remember, I think it was last year or the year before, we were in Roswell, and Bryce was there just hanging out at the conference. And it is refreshing to know that we have somebody like Bryce in our corner. He is part of Hollywood. His credentials when it comes to the entertainment industry are second to none. He's done all of it, but he knows what's going on. And that story that he told about, the party that he did at his house for Dark Skies when it was released, and to have this party crasher show up and, Men in Black type. I think I asked him once if he was dressed as a Men in Black, but how that story elevated, and then, he got read in. He got a 2-hour presentation, and then declines the offer to meet the big guy, the boss, in a cemetery in Long Beach at midnight. Oh, man. What just absolutely extraordinary. Anyway, Bryce Zabel is the best. And I do have 2 more copies of the book, his new book about the Beatles, to give away. And I'll keep the phone lines open. We'll switch things over to open lines, 323-825-5045 or 323-275-9695. Some of the things that we were talking about tonight, this is what concerns me about what's going on in Hollywood here. And if the media is handling this correctly. The success of House of Cards and the amount of fans and how many people watched that show, it's an extraordinarily large number. And then to turn around and Spacey, had his fans. Think, and it's how emotions, they get charged up, and how quickly and effectively he has now been erased. Netflix, I posted this. I don't know if I used the right words, but, to say that Netflix drop kicked him before. Now, this is where things get a little sketchy here for me. No trial, nothing like that. I don't know how he tried to defend himself, or if he did with the network, or if they didn't listen to him at all. But certainly the guilty side of it just came down. That was a swift form of justice. He had a film that he was producing, he was starring in, called Gore, Gore. Now, not about Al Gore, by the way, but Gore Vidal. And it was in post-production. It's ready to go. It was ready for release. Post-production, that's it. They were just tightening things up, finishing some editing, probably some special effects, maybe getting the titling done. It was music, it was in post-production. That film will never be seen. I guarantee it. It'll never be seen. They absolutely pulled that. That was a Netflix film. They don't want to, if they continue with House of Cards, he's obviously not going to be in it, but they're probably going to kill his character off if they move forward to finish this last season. There's a lot of people that are employed here. Other actors, the production team. There are it's millions and millions of dollars and that's people's careers. This is how they feed their families. To just suddenly pull the plug on it. My point is how quickly for the fans out there that they are presented this picture of Spacey, and how quick. And Zabel said it, I think, very effectively and very correctly. We'll never see him again. That's it. Somebody that big. Incredible. Same thing with Bill O'Reilly. Bill O'Reilly was Fox News. That's it. I would have thought, no, not me. I'm saying in general that ratings and money made the decisions here. And I'm glad for the rest of the country when it comes to things like Weinstein and Bill O'Reilly and Roger Ayers and Kevin Spacey that you know what? Ethics and morals come first. And are not driven by those ethical decisions, are not driven by ratings. It seems like up until these last few months that was the case. And it's shocking to me that there are victims out there that are now courageous enough to come forward and speak. But also, and this is the other part that I think is most important here, the conspiracy of everything that is going on. It's the witnesses to this stuff. The witnesses, the camera people, the makeup people, the production assistants, the PAs that are running around on the set that are victims to this or witnesses to this that can't say anything. They can't. Well, at least they thought that they couldn't. Because they want to get hired for another series. They don't want to be known as somebody that is out there running their mouths. There are things that go on the set, not of a sexual nature, but of anything that is private that needs to stay that way. And I'm not talking about the sexual stuff. I'm talking about anything. It could be money. It could be what somebody is paid. Just things that are discussed. Production ideas, the future, things, and that stuff is kept quiet. And you don't want to be the one known as, that has loose lips and is out there. You won't get hired anymore. So, unfortunately, part of this is this other stuff that was going on. And I'm being very, very, very serious about this. Hollywood is a strange place. The other aspect of Hollywood, you go to a Hollywood party, of which I've done that a lot, and you go and everybody knows everybody. Everybody knows about who is hired on a series, who the producers are, who the camera people are, who the script supervisors, set designers. Clothing and costuming and wardrobe. And everybody knows everything about everything that is going on across Hollywood. It's a very, very small community. It seems big when you get out of it and you're out around the world. But here in Hollywood, it's small. It's small. Sony Pictures may seem big. Fox may seem big. CBS these are big buildings, and Disney and Warner Brothers. They may seem big. They are not. It's a very, very, very small community. And when you get to the level of agents and executive producers and whatnot here in Hollywood, when somebody goes onto a project, whether it's a television series or it's a new film, and you have, the showrunners and the way that things are staffed, right? They go back and they hire their crew and they hire the stunt coordinators. It's a way of life out here. So you're going to hire who has got credibility, somebody that has got a reputation of being solid, because you put these crews together. And that part of it now doesn't seem so safe anymore. It just doesn't. It's really, really, really bizarre what is going on here in Hollywood. The amount of money, and I need to drive this home, the amount of money that is put together when you greenlight a television series, And per episode, the amount of money that is there, that is one thing. And then you go down underneath into the sub-level of that. You have editing, you have special effects, you have titling, you have the entire crew that is there involved in that. You have everything else. You have drivers and you have accountants and the money side of it. That's a whole nother staff. You have the extras and the casting. That is a whole nother aspect. You have the writers and the rewrites and the script. You have that. You have all of the camera people, the ADs, the assistant directors. You have all of the B shots that are done, all of the extra shots. That's a whole nother aspect. It is incredible how big of a production. That is for one episode. Every episode of a TV series has a different director. They have to ride that episode through, right? You can't have the same director on 16 episodes. It would be impossible. It's not the way that it works. So that part of Hollywood, the way things are staffed and what is witnessed and what people know is extraordinary. And I'm telling you, Hollywood right now is tripping out. And if it continues to go down this road that it is, I think that it's good for the country. You know, some of this stuff that has been going on and rumored to have been going on, to have it actually surface, it goes right back to everything that I have always talked about. That's the most important thing here. The world is never what it seems. It never is. It's just not. You know, and so in this world of Hollywood, just like this whole fake news thing that we went through over the last couple of years, what if the news is fake? What do you trust anymore? You know, what is it? And this part of Hollywood has been rumored to exist. It's been rumored, and it's been going on forever, for 100 years. This is 2017, right? And now it is out in the open. You know, it's extraordinary times that we live in. It's extraordinary times, and once that fear factor is removed, you know, I'm not going to have repercussions. I can go ahead and talk about this on the record. And it's not just the victims, that's one part of it, but it's the witnesses to this stuff that have been forced to stay quiet. It's going to get pretty out of control here over the next few months and the next few years. You just watch. Hollywood, and one of the reasons why I talk about this kind of stuff, it's not the story up front, just like Bryce was referring to here. It's not the story up front. That's the obvious stuff. It's what's going on in the background. It's the why. It's the conspiracy of it. It is how it's been hidden. That's the part that's the real part of the story for me. And to have this start to unravel here in LA, you must understand something. We have a few industries here. There's no car industry. You know, there used to be an airplane industry. They used to build McDonnell Douglas. That's all done. The industry that is here in Hollywood, in Los Angeles, is entertainment. Pick your city: Santa Monica, Sherman Oaks, Studio City, Burbank, Hollywood, North Hollywood, Los Angeles. These communities here, Brentwood, these communities are all entertainment-based. Every other house that you look at, every other apartment that you drive by here is somebody that is in the entertainment industry. Everybody. We are talking about millions. Millions. It is, so when I'm talking about it here, this everybody is affected by it. Everybody here. It is pretty crazy what is going on here today in Hollywood. The conspiracy is big and it's wide. Now, the question is this, and Bryce is no longer here, so I'll talk about the other part of this. There has been rumors out here for years about crazy circles of people about producers and directors and studio heads that I'm not going to name names. I don't even know the names. I never hung out. I never done any. No. I don't have any direct access. I'm talking about the stories that have been going on out here forever. Crazy, dark things. And I brought up Corey Haim. Corey Feldman is talking about some crazy things today. They were friends. They did movies together. Crazy, dark, sinister things. And the question is, how much of that is going to get unraveled? That's where I'm going. There's a whole nother side of this where if the dominoes start to fall and people start to talk, it's gonna be crazy town. One person falls, and it is going to get out of control. And we are on the verge of that here. I'm telling you, man, Hollywood is nervous right now. Nervous. And the victims out there that have been silenced one way or another, whether it is money or through a career, or maybe they are unemployed and haven't been heard from in years. You know, if something happens and some evidence surfaces, there is some crazy stuff that's about to go down. You know, and the rumors have always been there. Wow. Craziness. Absolutely crazy. All right. Let me get to some of the news that you may know absolutely nothing about. But, and one of the big stories right now, and this is, it has surfaced. This is anonymous. That web browser called Tor is getting a major overhaul right now. Tor is the legacy onion system that has been around for 10 years. Is its faults are starting to show. And this is coming from right now. This is on the dark web. And it was just written in a blog post about the update. The new system is well-needed improvement that fixes many shortcomings of the old design and builds a solid foundation for a future Onion network. The Tor network works by bouncing your connection through multiple users' computers on a network before you finally connect to the internet via an exit node. So someone from Sweden might have their connection routed through South Africa, Canada, Denmark, before finally connecting to the internet via Mongolia, for instance, masking their true identity and location. The browser can be used to view regular internet anonymously as well, but also gets users access to the dark web, websites that aren't indexed by search engines like Google and are only accessible if they are using Tor. Historically, it has been associated with online drug marketplaces like the Silk Road and general criminality, but it's also used by everyone from political activists fearing retribution to privacy activists. Even Facebook offers a special link to the site for people connecting via Tor. I don't know if you ever knew that. Well, the new update focuses on security and lays the groundwork for future improvements, but Tor says that for regular users, the main difference is that links for the dark web sites will be way longer. Now, I'm looking at one of the .onion websites right now, and I'm going to say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Let's go with 45 characters. And that is versus a 15-character way of getting through from before. But the legacy system and the old links will continue to work for a few years. Absolutely fascinating. But the other part of this that most people don't know, Tor was a 3-letter agency, government military design from the word go. It was a way for the government to shift stuff around anonymously, to not be discovered, and to keep their stuff secret. Now, think about that for a second. So, is this upgrade government-driven? Think about that. We never know the truth. Never. One of the things that, and I'll leave you with this, that Bryce had brought up, he brought up North Korea and those headlines right now. This is the bizarre part about North Korea and the headlines and what we are being fed today. And I need you to think about this for a second. When it comes to North Korea, nobody listening to this show has been hanging out with Kim Fatty Fat. Nobody. There's nobody in the media today. Nobody. A couple of reporters over in North Korea reporting out of North Korea. They haven't been in the inside circles of nothing. Nothing. So all of the news that we have today, right now, that are part of the headlines are generated. They are written. They're not based on fact. I'm not saying that there aren't nuclear tests happening. I'm not saying that missiles aren't being fired. What I am saying is there is nobody today writing news right now in our mainstream media that is part of the inside circle. Everything is written and fictitious. Is it true or accurate? There's a possibility there, but none of it, and I do mean none of it, has anything based on reality. And that is the scary part. None of it. None of it. None of it. Nobody is in the inside of anything over in North Korea. So I don't know what to read. I don't know what to believe. Think about that for a second. This is Fade to Black. Man, what another great episode. I got to thank Bryce Zabel. You can go, all of his links are over at jimmychurchradio.com. Go and check out the new book. All of his old books. It's all right there. Cyber Blaze at Bryce Zabel on Twitter. Fade to Black's executive producers, Rita Kamarian. Shows produced by Hilton J. Paul, Mark T. Kovar, LJ3, Renee Jonas. Thank you, Dennis. Thank you, Bob. Announcers are Steve Harder, Gene Vito, Mark D. Kovar, Fady by Dale, Webmaster Drew the Geek, Music, Doug Aldridge, Intro, Spaceboy, SpaceboyMusic.com. Fade to Black is produced by KJCR for the Game Changer Network. Syndication is KGRA, The Planet. Tomorrow night, right here, Trisha Eastman. It's going to be a serious, not-to-miss show. This broadcast is owned and copyrighted 2017 by Fade to Black and the Game Changer Network. It cannot be rebroadcast, downloaded, copied, or used anywhere in the known universe without written permission from Fade to Black or the Game Changer Network. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Follow me on Twitter at JChurchRadio. Until tomorrow night, everybody be safe. Go Beckley Teppy.